Hi guys, welcome to the third episode of Arena Talk. I'm Isopa and your host, your co-host with tag right below me. Um, on this Arena Talk, we haven't done a third episode in a while, so we're gonna have a ton to talk about here. And I have my guesses, NiteLight and Coltonw83 here. So if you want to just take away the introductions, Matt, NiteLight.
Hey, so I'm NiteLight, known as Matt in real life, and I am the general manager or one of the leaders of Nova eSports. So with them, I generally help organize the competitive side, help with the business pursuits, and then I'm also really heavily involved on the tournament side of Clash Royale. So helping to organize the grassroots leagues like Clash Wars, Clan Royalty Championship Series. I'm involved in a lot of them, really just trying to help push the competitive scene forwards. Given that I feel that Clash Royale really does have potential as an esport, and it just needs that push and that support from the community.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I'm Colton. I am a pro player currently on Master.gg. I was like the King's Cup second place. I participated in arena battles, and then I have my own YouTube and Twitch that I'm decently big on. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jake, aka Tag, and I've been streaming on Twitch recently. Just got my sub button. Have a YouTube that I use occasionally. Maybe I'll start using a little bit more. I have 500k challenge cards won. Recently hit that, and I'm a pro player for Nova.
All of their Twitters and their YouTubes will be below the description, so definitely check them out, follow them. They have a ton of good content. So let's get into this 2v2. We just saw it come out. Well, not just saw it come out. It's already past 2 cycles. How do you guys feel about it? Just in general, like feelings, thoughts toward the new mode.
So I probably have a bit of a different perspective from Colton and Jake here, and you, Silpa, where I'm not so much involved as a player in the community. I'm largely on the organizational side, but I do talk to a large cross section of players, and try to get a sense for what people like, especially with competitive formats. And overall, I felt like there was a lot of good feedback with 2v2. I thought it was going to be completely unbalanced going into it. I thought it was going to be spell cycle, pretty much with all that you saw. But I think they actually did a good job with it. They slowed the elixir down to where it felt like a good speed. And it really felt like you could coordinate with your partner and do much more through that coordination and have much more strategy than you can have in an individual game almost. Like I almost felt that there might be the potential for that to be one of the primary competitive formats, because it really raises the skill cap, I think, because you get that interaction between players. Whereas I think with individual Clash Royale, there's going to come a time where that sort of low skill cap for some of the cards and for some of the play is really going to be a limiting factor with the esport. And that's why I think that 2v2 could be a really good option to pursue if they flesh out some of the details. And I think for something preliminary that we're seeing for the first time, this was a fantastic start with it.
Actually, I agree almost 100%. It's like fun. It's really easy to get into. I also thought it was gonna be like imbalanced as hell, but they really did get it right. There was like almost no bad feedback. I didn't hear anyone saying anything terrible about the 2v2. No one was like, I'm gonna boycott this. I'm not. It was so crazy that like they had to increase the clan chest, but they kept the value the same.
That's
So
kinda
it was
dumb, but yeah.
it was just fun. It was super fun. Hey,
Yeah,
what was
no.
your guys' experiences with it so far?
I would say the same. It's just fun. It's as a content creator too, it's pretty cool to be able to make videos with other YouTubers and to have ideas stem from that. But yeah, I mean, it just seemed good. Obviously, if we are able to make it into a competitive thing, obviously anything regarding esports with Supercell would be awesome. But really, of course, with like online leagues, all they have to do is make it into a friendly battle, and we can use it. But I definitely think if they did that, we would have leagues focused around it, because I like the team aspect as well. Although I do think the single player will always be a thing. I think making a two person expands the opportunity both just for fun and for esports.
Yeah, so I actually have mixed feelings on 2v2. In its current state, I don't really like it just because I don't really like how there just isn't very much possibility to, like, there's no ladder, I'm not really gaining anything by doing it. So
Yeah.
I don't really see like any time or any point in like actually trying to get good at it, or even like spending a lot of time on it. So I haven't really like spent as much time as I would like to, besides like the first weekend when it was really hyped up, just because there's nothing really to gain out of it besides like the small clan chest or whatever. So I'd like to see a lot more benefits in the future, whether that be like a 2v2 ladder, like using like your maxed out cards or whatever card levels you have like within the clan. That'd be pretty cool if there was some ladder for that. Or yeah.
How do you think that would work 2v2 ladder? Because that gets really tricky, where unless you have a designated partner that you're always playing 2v2 with, how do you assign a ranking to that team? Is it based on, like, is it based on your normal ladder ranking? Do you gain points individually as a part of it, and then it like averages the two of you for when you go into matchmaking? Like, how do you think they could even accomplish that?
What if
I would think. Oh, I was just gonna say, I would think you just do it like any like 2v2 game, like Rocket League or something, where you average the elo and you get opponents based off that. That way, you allow. Obviously, there should be a gap, like an Arena 1 player, like maybe like an arena gap, or even just like a trophy area, to where if you're like 600 trophies apart, you can't play together. But yeah, just average it, because that's what big games do. Because like, or League, for example, is too like. A gold player and a plat player can play together, but I think they have a limit after a certain amount, that type of thing. So I think, yeah, just averaging it and finding like equal opponents that are either the same distance from each other or they're both like in between. Yeah. That would actually do a good job of giving you like even. Obviously, you're gonna hit a cap, of course, because of levels, but you'd up to the certain point to where you reach your cap, it would definitely be good, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think that could actually work well for it.
Yeah.
We already know that there's an MMR in the like 2v2 clan chest already, so that's like not a problem.
Yeah, because I started getting matched up against a bunch of good people when I won like 15 in a row or whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same MMR thing that they're putting in for ladder now, sort of. There's one in ladder, even though ladder you can see it with your trophies. They added. It's more complex now, and I'm pretty sure that they brought it over to 2v2. It's just like in 2v2, there's no trophy thing, so you can't like see your ELO, your trophies, but it exists.
See, I had a wildly different experience playing on my level 10 account compared to my max account, though. Like, when I was playing on my level 10 account, I think I had my biggest win streak. I think I went like 15-1 or 15-2 playing on my level 10 account. And I was consistently seeing players that like I'd never heard of. And then I was playing on NiteLight, my max account, and probably like a decent record, but nothing compared to 15-1. And I was seeing players that I recognized from ladder, that I recognized as having max accounts and recognized as good players. So it felt to me like there was some correlation with what my ladder trophies were, or at least what my level was outside of that, just based on who I was finding with it. It was I was finding too many players that I knew for it to be coincidental on my max account, it felt like.
True. I remember playing with like really high ladder ranking players in the beginning. But like they started off the same. Their like queue times were like really low, and they were playing people that they didn't know. And then later on, you got to see like this split. These players that kept on winning, it took longer for them to queue in to games where other people were just queuing in right away. So I think you all start off at a certain place, but maybe like depending on who you play, like it's like the faster you climb. Something along that lines.
It may seed you based on like what your current like ladder trophies are.
Yeah, and then like
changes it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense though, because everything should have an MMR. Otherwise, you you get to where you have like people just dominating consistently,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
like you have bad players playing against good players, and yeah, no, it makes sense for them to do that. That was smart from Supercell because there would have been a lot of complaints if it was the other way.
What kind of like 2v2 ladder would you guys want to see if you guys got one? Would you rather have a 2v2 challenge, a 2v2 ladder? If they had a 2v2 ladder, would people stop playing 1v1 ladder? Challenges toward that would good, etc.
I definitely wouldn't want to see a 2v2 challenge. I don't really care about cards selfishly, but
But that's you though. You have 500 card. You have 500k cards when you're maxed.
But I don't know. I feel like it would. I just rather see a 2v2 ladder where there's something like for the longevity of the game. Like everyone will get benefited by that. Honestly.
They should do a 2v2 ladder, which this is too much to ask for, but they should do a 2v2 ladder with tourney cap cards.
It's never happening.
It's never happening. Yeah, 20 cap cards. Like, what is that?
That would be like a true representation to where, of course, I mean, all the best players. I mean, this is bad to say because people like disagree, I'm sure, but almost all the best players are on max accounts anyway. But the very top 1% anyway. So I think the rankings obviously wouldn't honestly be that much different. You wouldn't have like names that you would recognize names, I guess, because they'd be on their personal accounts. But it'd be cool to see like a true ladder. But yeah, that won't happen.
Unless they completely change their monetization model, which I don't see them doing anytime soon, given the amount of cash it makes in.
add in skins and make it tourney cap.
Yeah. That would be cool. Like, what if they shifted all their monetization from like that to buyable skins? Like they kind of do it in like a Dota or something. Yeah. Oh my god! And they made a true ladder.
Great to make it CS:GO. Yeah.
I'd
be down, but I don't think it'll happen.
No,
I mean it doesn't make any sense to them as a company.
No.
I'd be down for skins though, even if they keep the current monetization model.
I think everybody would. Yeah.
It was shown that that was possible, right? Like
the Red King Tower.
Yeah, the Red King Tower. That was brought into the game, so at least it's on their radar. So it's anything's possible from that perspective.
Yeah. No, and it absolutely is. Like look at Clash of Clans; they have a different skin for each level, right? So for each level of troops. So yeah, it's absolutely possible. It's just a matter of if they're willing to do it and if they want to pursue that as a monetization model.
All right, so let's move on. I think that was pretty good. Do you have any last thoughts on 2v2, by the way, guys?
Just give us friendly 2v2 super.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Bliss.
Start with that. We can go from there.
Bliss. Yeah.
That would be nice.
So ladder has been changed a lot since the last arena talk. Ladder is no longer what before it was 3 weeks or something. Is that how long it was? 2 weeks?
Only 2.
2 weeks. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks, but now it's like a month. I don't know how long it is anymore. I'm not keeping track.
Yeah,
that's a month.
So
although the first season was 3, yeah.
Yeah, so the seasons have gotten longer. They've added more end game content, as in like leagues and draft chests. So overall, like I think ladder has gotten more interactive, and you're seeing a lot more people be more like you want to end on ladder pretty high now, as long as you are past like 4K or something. Mm-hmm. What are your guys' thoughts on ladder? Like now that the seasons are longer, I know all 3 of you actually are pushing your own accounts. So like thoughts on draft chest, thoughts on all that kind of jazz.
I don't really think the draft chests will actually matter for that many people like that already have maxed out accounts. Yeah, it's like one legendary. Like it doesn't help me at all. At least. I know it's a cool.
Jake, you're a special case. Like your max account is not a normal max account. We don't all have time for 500,000 cards for it.
We all don't have max EWIS. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just don't see that in like the grand perspective of things like actually being that beneficial. I think it's a cool incentive, but yeah, I think it would be better if like lower trophy ranges got more cards. Honestly, I think, but that's also like that might be a little bit too much to ask for from Supercells.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but it's kind of like the biggest reward is for people that already have maxed accounts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
because you can't reach that reward without a
I mean,
huge
you might
account.
as well just cut it off at like 5,500 or something. But
Exactly.
but that being said, the thing that I do really like about Draft Chest is the ability to choose between 2 cards. I think that's like a cool implementation from them.
Mhm.
It's not something I would have thought of otherwise, but it's really cool that they implemented it because the ability to choose cards is really, really cool, especially when it comes down to epics and legendaries, to where it really matters. So I think that was cool. That was a good job by them.
Especially for a max account where you do start getting into those stages where most cards that you get and just end up turning into gold, the ability to pick what you want when you're looking for those last few graveyards, those last few whatever, it's really helpful. I know it's not relevant to 99% of the players out there, but even to them, if you're looking to max out that specific card, if you're looking to build that Lava Luna or something like that, then
I mean, like in general, I'm just like happy that they're addressing the late game issues. Like a lot of people had no incentive to play ladder. Like, why would I want to play ladder? Why would I want to pass anywhere like past 4K, 5K to get what, right? To get nothing.
Yeah.
It's also cool just to have like the leagues next to your name at the end, like, you know, champion, master 1, master 2. I think that's just
I don't know.
It's a cool implement.
It's cool being the first person like always into one of those leagues. Like that's definitely an incentive to push. I know that no one's actually like got the highest one, so it'll be interesting to see if anyone reaches that this season. Well, I know people will, but I wonder
think they
who's
will,
the first.
Bets on who the first person is?
CMC.
CMC, you think?
Yeah. Depends on how much time he has, but I think so.
I'm too lazy, so it won't be me. I don't push until the last day or two.
Yeah, I pushed like last day.
Yeah. No, like I think someone had me push a while back, but it was like I got on. They said get the top 200. I won 10 games, and then I got off the account. And I was top 200. So
nice.
Yeah, I do what is required until the final day, and then I actually try. I got 31st last season. Yeah, wish I had max graveyard. That would make my life. That would make my life so much easier.
Yeah.
I was using level 4 graveyard. The skeletons just wreck it. It just murders the entire thing. It's like I have to use poison just to kill skeletons, and then of course I can't use Electro Wiz because that's like level 3 on the account.
Oh, that's painful. That's my Electro Wizard. Level 3.
I have level 4 on my personal account for Electro, but that's because I grinded a decent amount.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh god.
Only if I had known, I would have grinded all the way to 5.
I think that's everybody right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I basically split my eWiz challenge between this account and my little account because my little account was like level 8, 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
And the eWiz challenge level up all your cards. So I was like, oh, yeah, I can like boost this account up a little bit. I got that one to level 3, and now I'm level 3. So because like when the eWiz came out, I looked at its stats, I looked at everything, died to fire. It wasn't going to be good, and then they made it super good.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It wasn't.
No, it was trash. It died to Fireball. That was like the biggest weakness.
But it was such a good weakness.
Everyone was running Fireball, so it was like trash. It was like, oh, well, it's a free tower damage every time it's played. And it was like Musketeer had longer range, and it didn't do that. I think, did they buff the damage too?
No, I think they just made it not die to Fireball.
Was it just health? I feel like they did something else.
Health.
Oh,
no,
okay.
it's just health.
Yeah, I mean that helped it.
That
And then
help is huge.
And then the meta switched away from Fireball, so that didn't help.
Now the people with 5 viewers it's like 30 people, I think. I don't know, and
Maybe.
it's like insane. Yeah, it's dominating ladder.
So good. Yeah, then the graveyard deck, like people disapprove of me using it all the time, but it's like Mega Minion is so much worse than Electro Wiz.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's so much worse because it's like I can't stop Infernos. Inferno kills my entire push. It's like I have like 5 units that die to Inferno, and there's no Electro Wiz to reset it. So
it's not even talking about like how the Mega Minion always retargets from the balloon to the Lava Hound every single time.
Oh, one of the worst feelings ever.
That's the worst mechanic in the game.
yeah,
Literally
that's why in that deck I just took out Knight and put in Inferno so I can counter Lava Hound.
Oh, thinking face.
Yeah.
Okay, on that topic, I'm pretty sure I know what you guys are going to answer about this, but do you think Lava Loon or a component of it needs a nerf?
Heck yeah, nerf the loon.
Nerf the loon.
I didn't.
I concur.
I didn't mind minor Lava Hound. That's okay, because it's like the pups are the main source of damage. It's when you just throw out this big tank and throw out a unit behind it that can kill stuff. And it's like the only deck that works because that does that. That has 2 tower targeting units besides maybe like Hog, Giant, but not that many people play that, and it's only at ladder because it's easy to get that deck maxed. But yeah, no, every other deck has a trade-off to where they can't defend if they do that. But Lava Hound just stacks up on air, and Balloon makes it possible for them to be able to take 2 ground counters and then just a bunch of air crap and then just like shove it down someone's throat and double elixir and get a balloon to tower and the game's over and they've won.
Not even double elixir. You don't even have to kill them in double elixir.
You can win early game. You can win early game too. Yeah. And it's beat down, and it really doesn't have the weakness of not being good until double elixir like Golem does. You can, as long as you don't get hard punished the first time you play it, if you start it, your push is like, it's really hard unless you have like just a ton of counters to stop a loon. And it's like, Lava Hound's fine. It has counters, but the loon is the really annoying part. And the balloon is just so tanky for a unit. Like, when you think of like really high damage units, you think of like glass cannons like Mini P.E.K.K.A. or I guess Elite Barbs kind of. But they're easy to pull and stuff. But like a building targeting unit, it's just like really unique in how it functions in the game. It's kind of annoying.
Very small radius. Yeah.
And it doesn't. The way it works, it doesn't fit in any other deck. It's literally only good in Lava Hound, and it makes it to where you have to build counters against that one deck, and then it makes your deck unoptimal against everything else. Yeah, and it's good for like things to exist within the meta that make people not like overly rely on ground, but I feel like you could do that, like buff Minion Horde or something, buff these other cards that
Inferno Dragon,
buff these other cards that are freaking flying, and like nerf Balloon so it's not so oppressive. Like it single-handedly makes Lava Hound good when Lava Hound could be good if you buffed other aspects of like flying units. So
we literally need like we need an Ice Wizard tower or something. We literally need more counters to Balloon in the meta. The issue with Balloon is like, as Colton said, the deck restrictions that it puts on people's decks and just your play style. Like with my Furnace deck, you actually just in a competitive match, you're not actually allowed to drop your Furnace as your opening play.
Yeah.
If you drop your Furnace as your opening play, they just drop the Balloon opposite lane, goes right past, and you fucking like just take out 800 damage for no reason.
Yeah.
And that literally just makes the game over, like, immediately. On top of that, another thing that we didn't even hit on is the death damage of the Balloon. It doesn't even have to get towards or to the tower. It literally will do 300 damage, and it just won't matter.
Which is like more than a fireball.
Even if it doesn't, it's taking out whatever troops you use to counter it. Like, there's no other. So both Lava Hound and Balloon, they both spawn things that can actually end up taking out the troops that you use to counter it. Like that's ridiculous value you can come out of it. You can get out. Like it's equivalent of being able to play like a Hog to completely shut down a Minion Horde and make it, and like you could do that if you do it properly, but you just drop a Balloon on and you can play it defensively. Like I feel like that's a ridiculous mechanic for it.
I think the perfect nerf honestly would just be taking away the death damage, and then it's still a good card, but you don't get you don't get positive trades out of using a card on offense. The only other card in the game that does that is Battle Ram, and Battle Ram isn't as crazy. It has way more counters. Like any small unit plus a log stops it. Skeletons can stop it if your opponent doesn't respond on time, or if you don't respond on time. But yeah, it's the only other unit that does it is Battle Ram, and it has much more counterplay because it's not flying. So yeah, I think just the death damage is kind of ridiculous because it ends up like someone defends with archers. Well, the archers are dead after they defend it. So and archers alone don't counter it anyway. So no, it's too tanky, and it just does too much for a 5 elixir card, honestly.
And wasn't that the buff that we saw? Didn't they double the death damage?
I think
you hit on both of them. They double the death damage, and they made it tankier. The two buffs like actually did push the card over the edge, and it's been over the edge for a long time now.
Yeah. So one thing there, I wonder if this contributes, is when they're looking at buffing or nerfing a card or balancing in general, They look at win rates, but also card usage rates.
Oh, yeah. We should talk about
very-
this. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, NiteLight.
There's very few I think win conditions at the moment that are epics. What would be the epic win conditions right now? Are there
Pekka,
any?
Goblin Barrel.
I guess
Goblin
Yeah.
Barrel.
yeah, it's really
It's
Bloom
Balloon,
Goblin Barrel.
dude.
Yeah, and so it's
That is not
something
one
where
condition.
you probably have less usage at the lower levels with it, given that it's an epic. Like at those lower levels, you see more things like RG, Hog, things that are easy to level. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's underrepresented there and then overrepresented up on ladder, where we're all playing up at the top of ladder.
Yeah, and the kind of cards that you'll see people, or you'll see Supercell. Obviously, people make jokes about this, and but it's true, and it's a good business practice. When cards are really underused, you buff them, make them stronger than they should be, and then people want those cards, and they'll buy chests, they'll do stuff to get the cards, do challenges, and it results in you having revenue, which I don't know. You can feel about that how you will, but it's good for them to have a profitable company. And
Or you
then
just release a card with a bug, like execution.
yeah. And then people want to get it, and then you nerf it pretty bad actually. I'm gonna go off on a tangent and kind of come back, but with Executioner, that was dumb that in my opinion, that they took away the bug. They took away the bug after they had already nerfed it. Like at that point, just leave it as a feature, or once you take away the bug that made it strong, give it some compensation buffs outside of like the tiny range thing they did. And that was supposed to be a hot fix anyway, and they just left everything else, like the damage. Because I don't know, they kind of over nerfed him, because now you don't see Executioner anymore because he's just bad. Other AoE cards are way better. But going back to kind of like Balloon and stuff, and I think the thing really is the things Supercell looks to buff and nerf more than anything else are win conditions, because decks are built around win conditions, and they're going to be the more used cards. Like support cards will just there's support cards, it's always like the best 20% of support cards are going to be used in almost every deck, because as long as they have some synergy with the win condition, they function well. Like there's so many more unused there's so many more unused support cards than there are win conditions. And spells are the other thing. You always need spells in decks. So I think that makes sense for them to. Well, those kind of cycle out. They have a good balance on spells, I think. But
I actually
mostly
see them
win
like.
conditions. I make sense why they would buff and nerf those more than anything else.
I actually see them like buff and nerf more support cards that are underused than the win conditions. So we go back, we think about all the times they, because like I want to touch on their balancing methods. You know, the card usage rates and how they kind of see it. We've seen time and time again that they want to keep buffing like the Witch, the Bomber. Now I don't think they're doing it anymore, because they should know that like these cards are good for what they are. They shouldn't be really pushed toward like a competitive sense. But
Good lower level cards.
yeah, like I don't see them tweaking like these win conditions. Like I see them touching more on like the Bomber, the Witch, the Dark Prince, the I don't know, Valkyrie, E-Barbs, definitely. Like these cards, like Archers, Skeletons. But I don't see them really touch like. You see them touch things like Golem, like the win conditions, but I would say less so.
Yeah, and I mean it stems from the fact that there are less win conditions. But
Yes.
I feel like their nerfs and buffs to win conditions are usually bigger.
Yeah.
Because like
I think
had
they're
a
drastic.
big buff. Giant actually, when Giant was dominant, their nerf was actually pretty huge to it in terms of like HP and everything. What else? I guess I'm trying to think of what other.
I think with the support cards.
Oh,
too,
Goblin Barrel used to be terrible.
yeah. With the support cards too, I think they're a case where they become relevant or irrelevant just based on what win condition is buffed. So depending on what's viable at the moment, when you saw Lightning in the meta a lot, backing up tank decks, you saw Archers becoming really popular, right?
Exactly.
So I think really those support cards change based on what the viable win conditions are at the moment and what the meta is looking like, and that's why they don't need to be touched as much. And I think a lot of these support cards are in good places right now, where it really is just going to come down to like what is the use case right now, what's needed in decks, and what needs to be countered.
That's why I almost feel like. You go.
Yeah. I was honestly just gonna go back to the lava loon thing. What I was gonna say about it was something that you just touched on was the secondary effects of how lava loon just continuously got buffed. Mega Minion was extremely prevalent in the game. It was used in almost every single deck in Poison meta. And you saw Balloon get a huge buff then because like it was so easy to deal with. No one actually used it because Mega Minion completely shut it down. Mega Minion
Yeah.
then consequently got a nerf. Balloon
Like
stayed the
3
same.
nerfs.
Yeah, it stayed the same. There are other things that also were introduced, like Zap also fell out of the meta because of the nerf, and that definitely helped a lot of Lava Hound and Air decks. Like you don't really see a lot of great counters to Air with not having Zap. Zap was so much more versatile than Log. You're not going to log Lava Hound pups to clear them out of the way, so then the balloon doesn't get to tower. Also the executioner meta made it really like hard for people to use balloons. So like there were all these opportunities that were just like taken away for Supercell to see. Like Supercell would have had the opportunity to see like balloon is so freaking broken, but because of all these cards that were thrown in there, executioner, tornado, mega minion, zap, it kind of just I think like they kind of had sunglasses on and just weren't seeing the full picture of like what it is right now. And I really don't want to have the hell that's gonna be here when Electro Wizard gets nerfed, because that's literally like the only card that's keeping it in check, in my opinion.
And just wait for heal spell.
Yeah. Inferno
wait for
got
heal
nerfed
spell.
as well.
That-
Inferno got nerfed
Oh
as well.
god.
And like
Multiple
the-
times.
yeah, the other thing that I was gonna say was like it's a cheesy like deck too. It's not really like it's not that every single deck has answers to it. Like it's all air. You have to have significant counters to it if you have any shot of winning it. And it's not something that's easy to beat. Like when you're playing minor control against it, you have to make prediction logs, and you a lot of times like against good Lava Loon players, they're gonna mix up their Skarmy placements. They're not gonna throw it like directly on tower. So like if you have a Knight Electro Wizard, what if they like throw their Goblin Gang or Skarmy off to the left or right? And if you're apprehensive about logging and they throw it right on top, your entire push is decimated and you kind of lose. So you're just playing like some sort of screwed up guessing game, and it's not really like if you mess up at any point, or like if you overcommit on offense and they just because they're running Lava Loon, they can literally just stack their tower and go opposite lane, and you're in a 1-1 situation and you're playing control against Lava Loon, your Inferno is literally not going to hold up. It doesn't work. Like they can drop stuff on top of your Inferno and everything. And I'm really against this type of play style. Like I'm one of the most I'd say I am the most vocal about how it just needs a nerf, because any deck like this, there's not very many interactions that are occurring in the game. It's more so like they memorize situations and they respond to situations instead of thinking fast on their feet and responding to situations like accordingly and adapting to the situation that they know, or that they're accommodate each situation individually. Like Minor Poison or Hog Rider or any of these fast cycling decks, there's a lot of decisions that people have to make. And as we've seen before, like Lava Loon, you can literally just play with your feet and you can win games with it. There's no other deck that's
I think there's
possible.
a YouTube video in there.
Yeah,
I did that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did it on stream.
How would that work if you were trying to place like a Minor, Skeletons, Ice Spirit, and trying to cycle all your cards and trying to cycle back and forth to Minor Poison? It just doesn't work. And like there's so many different decisions that you have to make, and it just shows like if you're dragging and dropping cards really slowly with Lava Loon, there's not really that many decisions you have to make. There's not very much thought process that's going into it.
Yeah.
You memorize a situation, you respond to the situation because you've played that situation a lot. And it's stupid to see it like that, because when there's not very many interactions going on in a game, it comes down to card order and it comes down to deck building, because when there's less interactions, there's less opportunities for people to make mistakes. And that's really not what the game needs. If you're trying to make a competitive game, you're trying to raise the skill cap as much as possible. Having Lava Loon have all the deck restrictions and just be so good in general, it's just stupid. Like
I think one of the best points you made there, and something that really I think hits the nail on the head, is that when you're building a deck normally, You might look at it and say, what's my graveyard counter here? What's my counter to this? Make sure that it's versatile enough that you can address almost every deck. Do I have a counter for Goblin Barrel? Lava Loon's something where you can't just say, do I have a counter for it? It's if you want to, if you want to counter Lava Loon, it's do you have Inferno Tower? Do you have this? Do you have this? And do you have this? Because they just stack up those air troops. One or two counters isn't enough. Like Jake said, you need to really build a deck around being able to counter it, or you need to sacrifice versatility and acknowledge that you won't be able to take on some other decks quite as well. And that's really the challenge with it, where you have this deck that you need to build around it, or you need to forgo something in your deck building. And when you only get to pick 8 cards, when you're trying to build an offense while being able to address what your opponent is doing, you can't. That's not viable, especially as you get a more and more diverse meta, where you do need to be addressing more things. It becomes more and more of an issue. And I think a diverse meta is a great thing. I think it's fantastic and what we should be striving towards. I know not everyone agrees with that, but with that, there are the challenges of
I do.
certain cards demanding an answer and Lava Loon demanding 5 answers.
Yeah,
I think this is there's actually like already a huge argument here. I mean, there is a huge argument here in the whole skillless deck archetype thing. Thought that everybody has when it comes to, like, people will say, oh, what do you find skillful? People will answer toward their bias. Like, if you're a giant player, people will say giant. People will say log if they play bunch of log bait. People will say minor if they're a minor. If and then so like with like Lava Loon, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Yes, typically you don't have as many decisions in the Lava Loon deck, and I have seen the video where people literally do play with their feet. But
the lining is the hard part.
like you could say that this is a diverse meta. They're playing a different deck. The deck requires different play styles. I wouldn't condemn it just because it's easier to play. I would condemn personally Lava Loon because I think it gets too much for how little it needs. I don't know. It almost is way too effective against like a whole range of players. I feel like if you're playing against someone who's way better than you, you almost never win with Lava Loon. But if you play someone who's even or something, you can use Lava Loon and just win against the majority of players. But I mean, like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, when people say, "Oh, here's like a skillless archetype," like, why are you playing it? Like, how would you address the plebs?
I would say, and to add on to that, I would say, unless I'm playing if I'm playing a well-rounded deck, I would say, in terms of skill, I would have a better chance at losing against someone that's not very good playing Lava Loon than I would any other deck. And I don't like to call things skillless, but I think that's an indicator that the deck, doesn't have to make, you don't have to make that many decisions, honestly. But aside from that, also, like, Lava Loon is one of those things to where you can still have like 2 counters, and if they start Lava Loon and your counters are your 7th and 8th cards, you're gonna lose. Like, well, that's not the case with anything else. It's like it's just, I don't think any other deck can screw you harder in a rotation. Even like Spellbait, there's other counters to a Goblin Barrel. Like, you can take damage and get back to your log. Lava Loon, it takes 1 push and you're done. And the other, and beatdown, I mean, we're like really describing the beatdown play style in terms of like building up big pushes, forcing your opponent into the same lane. But with Golem, you have to run pump, or at least most Golem decks do right now. Other beatdown decks, you really have to try to survive the early game. And I don't think Lava Loon fits into that mold, in that I feel like Lava Loon actually wins the game before it gets to double elixir a lot of the times, and it just plays to defend for the rest of the game. Like, I don't think that should be possible unless your opponent's really bad, because like Lava Loon, even if your opponent rushes the opposite lane, I just feel like the push is too strong for too little elixir, in my opinion. And it's not the Lava Hound that's the problem. It's absolutely the Loon, because it's so hard to get rid of. and all it takes is the loon living for 1 second longer than you want it to, and your tower is basically dead for the rest of the match. Because I'll say 2 shots. 2 shots and your tower is dead for the rest of the match, essentially. And 1 shot, it's like half HP almost. So I think that's just really a problem. And like another beatdown deck that uses Lava Hound, the only other deck really that uses Lava Hound is like a Battle Ram deck. And I feel like that deck has really good counterplay because the win condition goes underneath it. It's a ground unit that can be stopped by other things like Knight and Log. I just feel like it's too problematic. And yeah, I think the solution would be to buff things like Minion Horde, to buff Inferno Dragon. I actually feel like, yeah, Inferno Dragon could be good. They just have to get a small buff, and I don't think there'd be a problem with it because it can be stopped by Electro Wiz, which is super meta. But and like among other things. But yeah, I really just feel like Loon is the main problem. I don't think anyone has a problem with Lava Hound. It's just the Loon. And then in terms of, obviously people are going to be like that. They're going to say RG is skillless too, and I actually don't think that's true. I think RG actually relies heavily on predictions as the game goes on. Obviously people are saying that because of ladder to where it gets overleveled, but as far as like the plebs or whatever, like we were saying with Lava Hound, I mean, if you have good levels, I would just say to use it. Kind of the same with RG. I don't really have any problem with people using what they have good levels on. I don't think there's anything in this game that's skillless because you do have to make decisions, but I think Lava Loon, and people complain about this, if you have a bias towards a certain deck that you really don't like losing to, they're always going to say this. But I think Lava Loon functions in a way that it does stuff that other decks can't do. And it fits within Beatdown, and I guess Beatdown is less decisions, less mechanics or whatever. But I feel like it's an exception to the rule and how it functions within a match, because other Beatdowns have to really rely on double elixir, and it just doesn't. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what is the realistic nerf that needs to happen to Blue? It's something that's not going to completely tank it and bring it out of the meta entirely, but which is going to put it into a big place. Like, what is that?
Honestly, it just needs like a health reduction in some way, and maybe a little bit of damage reduction from the bomb. I think it's like far too tanky. It's really just far too tanky as a 5 elixir card that deals that much damage.
I think the nerf is, I think you can leave the damage on the balloon, but you either need to give it a big, or not a big, but like, I don't know, like a 10% health nerf would go a long way on balloon. And then if you don't want to do that, just take away the death damage, honestly.
What about also putting a bit of delay in for when it gets to tower? Like right now, as soon as it's over it, like you said, you lose half.
No, there's so many occasions where that card has 1 HP. Yeah, no, that would be good too. Like maybe it has a load up time, because then I actually like that, because what if it, because it's not like any other card in that other cards load up. Like against Electro Wiz and Musketeer, you can like log them back as they're locking on to tower, for example. But with Balloon, if it touches like the edge of your tower as it's dying with like 5 HP, it gets a shot off. And who cares if the balloon like gets a tower and then takes like a second, because then you have time to kill it. Yeah, I really like that change. I think that actually would be a really good change instead of the messing with stats. Well, I guess that is a stat, but just having it have like a load up time. Yeah. And then it can still have the same amount of time between shot 1 and 2. It just takes longer to get the first one off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be fine with that, honestly, because it's just such an annoying card. And the only other card that you ever had that kind of feeling that's like a glass tank would be like, I guess, Mini P.E.K.K.A. back when that was a thing. But Mini P.E.K.K.A. like has the longest freaking windup ever, so you had a time to stop it. So yeah, no, I think that'd be a good nerf.
Yeah. Something that you mentioned that I sort of want to backtrack to is about how you can really get screwed over by your card order. Where if you don't have the right card order, Lava Loon can just absolutely destroy you mid game. And this is something I was actually talking to Jake about earlier this morning, actually, where one of the, other than Graveyard, really the only RNG in the game is what your card order is. And it's something that can completely determine a game when you're playing better players. So should there be something where you can pick one card that is automatically in your starting lineup, or should there be something like a Mulligan where you can lose 1 elixir, like with Hearthstone where you lose a card, you can lose 1 elixir and you get to cycle your cards to a new starting hand? Like, should there be an option like that in the game to mitigate the RNG?
I would say, and this is what I've like proposed on Twitter, and people have gone back and forth with me on this and various things, but that's good for the game, I think. I think you shouldn't be able to start with one card because then people like in this meta, people would always choose like Electro Wiz, in my opinion, because it's safe. It can start from the back and it counters almost everything on offense. I do, however, think that you should be able to load into a game. You should be given 5 seconds to select one of your 4 cards and to switch it out for another random card within your deck. I think that negates people like metagaming their starting hand. You don't have like optimal hands or whatever, and you don't choose your rotation, but you are able to alleviate awful hands that maybe you have like Inferno and your 3 spells, or you have no like good air defense against like a Lava Hound or something like that. I think being able to swap out one card randomly would be enough to alleviate really bad rotations and stuff. And I think this stays away from, because I think the problem with making it to where you can always start with one card in your hand is you're going to run into these people that are going to start like stacking up on spells and things like to where you can run 3 or 4 spells, which I don't know exactly, but if you were able to decide your hands and able to plot it out to where you could do this, then that would be a problem within the game, I think. But because that's why people don't do that. It's because your rotations get so jacked up in certain situations, and it's luck based. That's why people don't run like 4 spell decks or even 3 spell decks for the most part. But yeah, I think just being able to swap out one card would be good randomly at the start of matches. Yeah.
I think that'd be fine. Just swapping out one. The problem with like being able to mulligan your entire hand is that, like in Hearthstone, you have a 30 card deck, right? 30 cards.
Yeah.
That's 30 cards that you can choose from. In Clash, you really have 8, and it's really easy to just choose all the cards except like. I feel like a lot of people want to have pump if they're playing like a 3 Musketeer deck. Why don't you just mulligan literally everything? And it's like you just cycle through your entire hand. You'll always get the pump.
Well, so I was saying, so is there, for Mulligan, is there a cost where it's worth it to do your whole hand? So let's say so you can't pick a specific card. You have to mulligan you have to redo your whole hand. And let's say it's 3 elixir or 2 elixir or something like that.
I don't think you need that.
Enough of a disadvantage.
This is like a RTS card game, sort of like hybrid.
Does it tell your opponent? Because I think you would have to tell your opponent. Otherwise, it's like people are just going to sit. Yeah. Well, I think the problem is like with that concept is there's only 8 cards in Clash Royale. So if you get rid of your entire hand, you just have your other 4 cards.
Yeah. Well, it randomizes it though. Just
so you
like re-randomize your hand.
4 of 8. Yeah. I don't know. I still feel like that's kind of dumb because, like, what if they end up with the exact same hand they started with?
It's like, why does this have to exist?
There's too many situations to where it's just random, and I don't think adding RNG. I mean, of course, my suggestion involves like 1 random card, but then at least, well, you know you have a 25% chance in getting one of your other cards, and in a well-rounded deck, that's probably going to give you what you want. Like, you're going to get a defensive option. It may not be the one you want, and I wouldn't rely on it. But I do think it could be like a good thing. And of course, this would be before you know what your next card is in your rotation. So it would just be like it shows you your 4 and a hand, and you switch ones. I just think that's like a small thing that can help alleviate those issues, especially at like a professional level in Clash Royale.
No, I think I like that. And something Supercell would like, just make it so that you have to spend gems or something to do it.
Yeah, more money. I just kind of feel like
to unlock the ability to do it forever, something like that. Yeah, I'd be down. I would do it.
Yeah, I'd spend that money right away.
Yeah, and it's not something that, it's not something that you can like point to if you're a free-to-play player and be like, oh, I lost because he could swap out 1 card randomly at the beginning of the match. It's like, no, that doesn't apply, because it would be before you know what your opponent's deck is. So it's not like you can use it to your advantage. You just don't want to have like a terrible hand. Like if I don't know, you're playing Golem and your first hand has no pump in it, so it's like just you try to get the pump. I mean, you may still not get it, but it's more so for decks, I would say, that like have a defense, and then I don't know, you get like your defense and then your spells, and then you're screwed for the start. So
no, I think that's a good option.
Yeah, and it's not super like over the top. I think some things it's just over the top in terms of how much it would affect the game. This really wouldn't affect play at all. It's just like a nice quality of life change almost.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly, I really think that people should not be able to pick like their entire starting hand.
I definitely.
Oh yeah.
I definitely agree with like just one card, and the reason behind that is like I've played way too many GCs and had like log, knight, skeletons, and like no air defense, and then the dude literally drops like balloon with minion horde at the bridge and takes my tower. It's literally it's the saddest thing ever. Or like competitive CRL matches where like you just like you're playing against Expo and you're running my graveyard deck and you don't have furnace or anything to direct the Expo or cycle.
Yeah, it's
so you're
like
literally you're literally
furnace,
just chilling there. You're literally just chilling there and you can't play anything and you're just waiting until like double elixir or waiting for them to cycle cards. And it's never really fun to like when I lose a game, I want to be able to look back at it and be like, hey, I made a wrong decision here. I don't want to be like, I guess I really could have card ordered better. Like that's never a thought.
I should have card ordered better.
That's literally 95% of the games that I lose in GCs. It's just like, I guess I could have card ordered better. And it's just
I got a bad card rotation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not fun to look at. And it's like it's really it's depressing when you're actually trying to look through your losses and try to find mistakes, and then that's and it's
I think it's good to have like my suggestion I think is pretty small. It gives you some control over card rotation, but it doesn't give you too much to where everyone's starting with the exact same freaking hand. Like they're just starting with safe hands. And I think this is a good way to punish players that do stupid stuff, like start with elite barbs at the bridge, to where no, it probably works 30% of the time, but I mean, 30% of the time, but that one time to where you're against that person, they drop elite bars at the bridge, and this doesn't happen as much for us, but I think it does a lot for other players, to where someone just starts a hog or elite barbs at the bridge, like they're disadvantaging themselves 70% of the time, but that 30% of the time, it takes a tower, does significant damage because their opponent has nothing in hand to deal with it. And it's not that their deck isn't well rounded, it's just that half their deck isn't in their hand, and there's a decent chance that they get stuck with an awful starting hand. And I just think having small amounts of control, but not too much, would like help alleviate that.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it would also make I think it would also make more decks viable. Like I just stray away from Zap 8 in general, just because I don't really like the idea of like a lot of people just dropping like Hog Rider or Elite Barbs at the bridge and then logging. Like what if or Battle Ram? Like you have to drop something in the pathway of like to deal with those units. And what if you have Inferno last card and you just lose the game because guess what? You just don't have like any answers. So that was always like something that I've just been extremely apprehensive about. And I think like if they added if they implemented Colton's suggestion, not only would it just remove a lot of RNG and just blind luck at the start, it would also like help a lot of people just feel more comfortable running certain decks, and that would be really good for the game. I would definitely consider running Zap 8 a lot more if like that was implemented, because I really hate having Inferno last card and then just running into either Lava Loon because like you just lose, or like anyone that just spams stuff at the bridge and holds a spell with squishy units. It's the game's over.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that like even if like Cohen's idea was implemented and you had like a little bit of control over it, the general populace it doesn't really matter.
It wouldn't affect them. It would just help us.
Well, I mean, no, it would affect them. I'm just trying to say that like they'll still say things like, I lost a card order, I still got this and this and this and this. That's still going to happen. It doesn't really matter.
It mitigates it though.
It mitigates it, I'm sure, but it doesn't
like
disappear.
You can't complain at this point because it's like you have more than you had before. So
at the end of the day, this is still like a card game, and there are still things that you have to accept by playing this game. It's not going to be like a StarCraft, like a League, where everything starts off the same for everyone. That just is not the game. But speaking on RNG, so I've had a ton of like agreements and disagreements on Graveyard essentially as like a card to a lot of people, and they all seem to have different varying opinions. I even did a video with CWA which has like so many mixed opinions, but So I have you guys here who have played oh my god, who have played Clash Royale like a ton, and you guys have formed your own opinions around this card. Like, what do you think about it?
I mean, I love the card. I used it to get like 30th global last season. But that being said, I think in a game that obviously you're starting. Okay, that being going a little bit back to what you just said though. I really like the fact that the starting hands are random. I think this change that I propose would be good. But that being said, I do think it's in an overall feel. It's good that the starting hands are random because then it kind of gives you a different series of interactions, even if with the same decks throughout the game. So as a general thing, that's good. I like that Supercell has it that way, and I think it's well made. So that's good because you don't feel like you're playing the same match. Even though I may play the same decks back to back, I feel like I'm playing a different match because, and that's a good thing. But that being said, with Graveyard, I don't think it has any place in the game to be completely random. I feel like they need to
Thank
normalize
God.
it. I mean, I love the card. Like, I use it, and I would still use it, but I think in some way they need to make it standardized. Like, I think it would still be a good card if the skeletons just spawned in the same place every time.
I don't think.
Like,
I think that would either
I
like.
mean, maybe give it a compensation buff then. I don't know. I don't think there should be a card that based on RNG, it can go from doing 2,000 damage to 200 or whatever, based off like if a knight's in the counter radius. There shouldn't be that much inconsistency, especially in a game that we foresee as a esport. There shouldn't be that much randomness in it. It should come down to skill, and a card shouldn't be able to vary in 500 damage based off of random numbers. So that's my stance on it. Same as yours, obviously.
With that, I completely agree in that I think it is good that there's some randomness with the beginning card order. Otherwise, you get cookie cutter strategies where where it all comes down to is who can play it better, whose like mechanics are better, with no strategy or thinking behind it.
Yeah.
With Graveyard, it definitely I think whenever you play a card, you want consistency of outcome. So if this interaction is repeated in the exact same way, played in the exact same way, you should have the same outcome every single time. Yeah. And I think, like you said, you need that for competitive play. Mm-hmm. But whereas right now, yeah, you can have huge changes. Like if you're using a splash unit like a baby dragon and you get some single skeleton spawns on the other side of the tower, it can completely change the damage output. Yep. And that's something where you as a player can do nothing to address that. Sure, you can throw more elixir at it, but there's nothing you can do to hedge your bets with that. So yeah, I think it's terrible for the game. And if that was the standard throughout the game, if there were tons of cards with RNG, let's say you play the Goblin Barrel on the tower, rather than it splitting up in the same way with 2 in front, 1 in the back every time, if it completely randomized where those goblins went, and that was the kind of thing that you had across the game, then great, that's a standard in the game. It's understood that that's what's to be expected.
Yeah.
But I think to have a singular card with that RNG, it is really unhealthy, and it really lends itself to just that unfair play, where just like you can get screwed over by a bad card order, you can get screwed over just by bad skeletons spawns.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't think it's a hard fix. I think you basically just standardize where the skeletons spawn, make it so that it's in like a fairly irregular pattern. But yeah, make it standard and to where it's not easily countered by like playing a card and like hacking it in one specific way, but just make it spread out enough and that it does consistent damage, but where there's no randomness with it.
Yeah, and I honestly don't. I mean, people would eventually like find out. I mean, I guess you can find out like the optimal counters, but I don't feel like. Well, honestly, I don't even feel like there's that big of a difference because okay, so it spawns like all over the circle, but it spawns in the same locations. I guess because you know when each skeleton is gonna spawn, but as long as it's like okay, so like top left skeleton spawns first and then bottom right spawns next, as long as it's not like in a wave, as long as it's still like it occurs the same way every time, but the skeletons are kind of like dotted around the circle, like I don't think there'd be any problem with that because there's still not like a super optimal time or place to play a card. Maybe they give it like a small buff like after that, but I really don't think it would make the card bad. It would just make it consistent, and I don't see a problem with that. So.
Yeah.
And this is as someone who loves the card, as someone who uses the card and has used it to win money and stuff. So it's like I'm probably one of the people who've abused the card for more than anyone else. But I still think that for the game's sake, it's inconsistent, and no other card does the same thing in terms of how it's inconsistent. Rather, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I won 300K on my cards with a graveyard deck, so I've played it a lot. I've played it a lot in Clash Wars and just anything in general, and I've had some really bad experiences with it too. So it's a love-hate relationship, but I know Matt can attest to this game in particular. I played against a Valkyrie one of my games. I threw down 4 graveyards in a Clash Wars game, and I didn't get a single skeleton spawning on the left side of the tower. And I put it in the optimal spot, did not get a single skeleton spawning in it. And like it was baffling to me. I just couldn't believe it. And like the Valkyrie literally had every single skeleton, and that's never happened before. But there should never be like games like that or outliers like that in a competitive game. All the interactions should always be the same, so people are able to make decisions based off of that. And like, I don't really want to look at a game again and just be like, how did I lose this game? I guess I got really unlucky with my card spawns because they're randomized. Like, there's nothing I would have changed in that game going backwards. And like, it was rough seeing that. And in general, like, it's really hard seeing games like, or conversely, like playing against graveyard. There's the log timings are always different because like, you don't really know if a skeleton's going to spawn on the other side of the tower. You don't really know, like, if you have to drop something to actually deal with that skeleton on the other side of the tower. If you have a knight tanking, sometimes, like, the knight's going to do a great job. Sometimes the knight won't actually deal. Like, if you have a knight on the left side, there's going to be skeletons on the right side, and that one skeleton can do, like, 300, 400 damage if not dealt with. So
yeah,
it's really annoying, and I think for the game to actually evolve into an esport, people need to, like, there needs to be the least amount of luck possible from that perspective. The card interactions have to be the same at all times, because it's not fair for the game. It's not fair for people, and it's not fair for the players. And like, if I'm traveling to an esports event, like, I really want to know, like, the stuff that I practice is going to, like, hold true to when I play, and it's not there.
So to like sum up, graveyard as it is currently, as it stands with the RNG factor, should not be a part of the game because it messes up. Because it's just like, it's such an outlier. It does. I don't care if it's good at the moment or that you can defend it. Like, I really, like, I don't think that has anything to do with, with the conversation.
Graveyard. You can take one of them out. Which one do you get rid of?
Wait, what?
I play graveyard, so
I play graveyard.
I take out graveyard 100% every single time because it's so different.
But I mean, it goes both ways. It screws over the graveyard player as much as it does their opponent. Because you can lose games because you don't get skeleton spawn in the right place. It's just it's inconsistent. For the sake of both parties, it should be consistent in a game to where every other interaction is consistent.
Exactly. So the question is, like, where do you stand, like, after understanding that this card, like, do you want it taken out of the game? Do you want it fixed so that it just becomes consistent? Like, that is now, like, the argument. I just wanted to clear this up for anyone who is unsure of what the hell graveyard is and why RNG should not exist in this game in particular. Yes, other games like Hearthstone does have RNG, but their game has so many instances of it and in so many different ways that it doesn't affect it doesn't shine as much as graveyard. Graveyard has been part of the meta and has been top of the meta for longer than Giant Poison has. Much longer than Giant Poison has. And Giant Poison got, like, completely crushed. It got nerfed to hell.
It deserved it.
And Graveyard got buffed. I just want to say that Graveyard got buffed on top of that. So, alright, yeah, I think that's pretty good for the RNG.
I mean, and as two people that play a bunch of Graveyard, it's not even a fact of whether Graveyard is OP or OP or not. It's just a fact of consistency, and that's, like, all we really think it should be. And I think leave it in the game, but you should fix it. So.
It's just like, I'm kind of surprised they haven't addressed it.
That'd be nice.
Well, balance is something too, where they, without harping on them too much, I really think that the balancing is going to become more and more difficult for them. I know they've expressed concerns about trying to balance 2v2 while trying to do 1 versus 1.
You can't do that
because it makes it so difficult. But balancing overall, there's so many complications. Every time you add a new card, you have to test that against every single other card, right?
which I don't think they do. I think
Well,
yeah.
there's one guy. It's literally one guy that
Yes.
balances it. Right? I think
And orange juice.
I know it's just
Give it to OJ. Seriously, let OJ do it. But yeah, I think it's basically one guy that balances it, and it's going to become harder and harder. And you're dealing with something where even setting aside 2v2, you're basically trying to balance multiple different games and metas, because the lower level meta is completely different than top of the ladder. Top of the ladder, you're barely seeing RG. Lower down, you're seeing a ton of RG because people can overlevel that card. And you see a lot more Witch. Supposedly it's overpowered down in like the low arenas. Whereas when was the last time you saw one? Top of ladder.
turquoise.
Never really.
What's a witch?
Turquoise.
I saw someone complain. I've been seeing people, they're like, on Reddit, they want bowler to be nerfed, and I'm like, I literally only see it in one deck, and I don't even like the bowler the most with Tornado. I like the baby dragon better.
Yeah, it's
It's interesting. Like, and it's probably because like bowler is good against like e-barbs and tank and like giant pushes, so maybe that's why. And hog too.
Yeah.
So it's like a different meta when certain cards have to be used because of their levels.
Yeah, so you end up with, you're bouncing on more than 2 different games, just trying to balance things at different ladder.
not to mention just tourney standard challenges.
Yeah,
Because they're taking a look at all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then every time you add a new card, you have to every time it's exponential. You have more and more cards to compare to and to test it with, and then with 2v2 it adds another complication. So I actually think they've done a really good job with balancing in recent months. As much as there's issues, I think we have the most diverse meta that we've ever had. I think if you look at the starting point with like Goizen and Minor Poison and look at where we are now, I think we've come a long way. That said, I don't know that they can really make the changes and get the fine tuning that they need moving at the rate that they currently do with their team. And that's something across the board where I think there's issues. We talked about like bugs in the game, the executioner bug, the current bug in the game, which I know Jake's been having a great time with, where you can't
glitch.
play cards sometimes, or like you can't tap and then play it. Tons of UI bugs in the game. I think the log update, it was supposed to be that if you play it at the back of the tower to take out a goblin barrel, that it can't take out princess. But they forgot to put that the change in the update, and so they ended up like changing something with it. Like it feels like there's screws that are coming undone all across the board, and that they just can't keep up with it with the team that they have. And I know Supercell works with really small teams of developers, and that's what's worked for them. It means that they're really nimble, they can adapt, and they have a lot of autonomy to do what they want. And that's why they've been so successful as a company. They're like valued at over $10 billion based on what they were sold at to Tencent. But I really think that if they want to pursue this as an esport, what they're looking to do is they can't accomplish it with the team that they have at the moment.
No.
I think every single person there is probably absolutely incredible, but there's just not enough hands on deck. And you see things slipping through the gaps with the executioner, which is game changing, with the log, with bugs all over the place in the UI and matchmaking. So I really think it's something they need to take a hard look at and figure out what they're going to do to make it work moving forwards.
Yeah, I mean, you've already seen it with like the playtesting. They keep releasing these cards, and you just see it be just insane. With the Mega Minion, like I feel like they don't even test out the card really. Like in other big games, in other games in general, if they're gonna release like a balance update, they'll at least playtest the unit, the card, the champion, etc. to see like if maybe it's a little bit over buff, maybe it's a little bit under leveled. But like, yeah, like the executioner came out, it was just insane. This guy, I know one person was responsible for it, and the glitch wasn't fixed for so long, and then it got fixed. The log, just like you said as well, it can't be placed on top of buildings anymore. And look how long it's taking them to like address this. It's not keeping up. And if this is going to go somewhere, they have to like alter something. They're gonna need more people, definitely. You need more like real balance updates. I think that their balancing is so far pretty lackluster. I think the only thing that people remember after the last balance update is that arrows got better. That's literally it. I don't think they addressed. I want them to like lend an ear toward both like the community and just like even players who play this game a lot, so that they can voice their opinions. But I feel like it's like their little group and they're just looking at like stats, data, like, or just looking at the money. I don't know what it is, but that's what it kind of feels like when they send out these updates. I don't feel like they're in touch with the game itself. They might just be like looking at like card usage rates, like, oh, this shit is really high, like, or they'll do dumb stuff like, let's see, like Zap was the most used card in the game, right? It was really used. It was like what Log is right now. Then they nerfed it till it didn't kill goblins, and then Log became super strong. Log has been really, really strong for a long time, but they haven't even touched it. Why is that? Maybe it's because it's like a legendary, and they know that a lot of people put in money for it. Like, why does that reasoning have anything to do with like balancing the game? It doesn't really match up for me when I look at like what I think needs to be touched on. Like, they haven't touched Graveyard. Why? For how long? Like 5 months now. But they touched Giant like, pretty relatively fast to end the Goizen meta. Maybe because the Graveyard is legendary. Why did they? Let's touch on the Ewiz. Ewiz right now. When it came out, I made a tweet. I was just like, this is like actually the most perfectly balanced legendary they could have done. And then they made it unfireballable. But they haven't touched it, and now like the Ewiz is currently like dominating. I think like almost everywhere, especially in top ladder, especially in challenges. Why aren't they touching it?
I think
why did they touch it in the first place?
There's definitely a trend there of they release a card. There's usually like within a set of 4, there's usually 1 or 2 that are really viable, with one of them that's completely overpowered, like a Mega Minion. They'll leave it overpowered, usually through I think like 3 or 4 balance changes, and then they'll nerf it into the ground often. But they leave that card to where the max players have time to max it out and just barely get to it, and players start really wanting it and requesting it and buying chests for it, and then they shut it down after that. Executioner, like bug, there's no way you can't notice that bug playing it. You play that card once and you notice that it's stunning those minions.
There were so many bugs too, but they still released it. Did no one drop the card? Did no one ever look at the card?
Dropping the card and you're done.
Yeah, it's like insane. And then what? The top players got it to level 8, and whoever got it to level 8 won that season. I think CMC won that season with like an Execution or Tornado deck, Furnace, Goblin Barrel, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it got nerfed into the ground, and then everyone's like, huh.
So this card sucks now. No, but when they first changed it, like, so Clash of the Ash was the first to release a video like of showing gameplay of the Executioner, and he didn't realize it, which I mean it's fine, but and he was kind of like, that was weird in his video, but like within like 10 seconds of watching gameplay of the Executioner, I'm like, that dude displaces units. Like, that isn't supposed to happen. The unit like shakes, and then it cancels its auto attack. I'm like, that's not that. There's something going on there. And I immediately like messaged Orange Juice, and he was like, oh yeah, it has like a mini stun. I'm like, how does that happen and not get told to us?
Yeah, what about it killing Skarmy? Like, you put a Skarmy on top of it. Like, how do you not recognize that? Like,
that was another thing. Yeah, they took away its ability to hit behind it. Yeah. And that's what I was kind of saying. Which
was a bug.
Compensate it. They took away the ability, which is okay. Yeah, like take it away, but then give it back its damage.
Didn't they also nerf the range of it?
Yeah, they nerfed the range and
the range, the bug, and the ability to hit behind itself.
There was another bug too, where the axe would fly out of the arena.
Yeah, I mean, of course you need to fix that one because it freaking breaks the card. But like, it's nice if you can make it to where I mean, it's hard sometimes not to over nerf things, but they absolutely over nerfed it, and it's pretty bad now. Like there's times. Well, I mean, I really liked it when it first came out because it's like, of course it's OP, but it was a hard counter to Lava Balloon, so I was like, I love this card. But then they took it, doesn't even counter Lava Balloon anymore. I feel like because you can tornado with it and the balloon like still survives. So
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things you touched on is sort of whether or not they're listening to the community. And I'm of two minds with this. I actually think if you look at overall how games interact with the community, I think Clash Royale does an incredible job in some respects. And with that, you'll see posts on Reddit where people are talking about things or asking about something, and you'll see the community manager, Tim, chiming in. And being there. So they're clearly engaged with it and they see what happens. And you actually see suggestions from Reddit implemented sometimes in the game, whether that's card ideas, balance changes, things like that, where it's clearly directly taken from the suggestions there. So I do think they're listening. I think where the disconnect is and where they're lacking is they're not using the resources available to them within the community. So they have the NDA Club, for example, which is like the people who get their video content early, who can then post the videos as soon as they're allowed to. So like OJ, for example, or Nick at Night, or those guys. You could take those guys and then take some of the well-known members of the community. Take some of the pro players or some of the players that attended CRNAL, something like that, and give them the ability to use the dev builds and to play test the cards. And now I know they're on a strict schedule and they're often tweaking it right up until the end, but they should have those cards ready a week early at least. Get it in the players' hands and let them test it out, playing against each other, and utilize those resources. The community would be willing to work with them to make it work. I know they're super concerned about leaks and everything. Realistically, all that does is build hype about the cards.
I mean, if you make them sign contracts, they can't say anything. So.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when you have the current system where they have the card ideas and concepts in place with the stats, but then they put them, what is it, like 3 weeks between cards now or something? I think they extended it.
Yeah, it's one card each. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason you can't be playtesting those. Even if they're in a rough state, there's no reason that you can't be playtesting those, seeing what works with it. Is it going to be overpowered? What needs to be changed here? And there's players who would be willing to do that, who would be willing to contribute to it. And so I think it is okay. Actually, it's not really okay working with, I think, the small team that they have. Like I said, things are clearly slipping through the cracks. But if they are going to do that, at least utilize the people who are willing to help and who are willing to contribute. And I think that starts with really giving the players a voice and getting insight from them. Like I know that from what I know, the Clash Royale devs, they play very low level accounts, and that's because they want to get the normal player experience. But the reality is that that's not representative of the player experience all throughout the game. And also a lot of revenue comes from those top players, from the max accounts. So I think it is a stakeholder that you do want to be addressing, and something which is really being left out of the conversation right now.
Completely agree. There's like I know I'm ripping on Supercell a lot for just like their seeming lack of communication, but like overall I've been on the Reddit forums as well, and they definitely do like help out with the quality of life changes, especially in this game. They've added the Facebook friends list. They've added a bunch of challenges. They're doing like these little things I think in the UI that are really good. They added in just like a ton of stuff. But yeah, like we're a little bit more concerned about the whole playtesting, a little bit of more competitive side of the things that I think they're sort of lacking right now. But they could definitely reach out and utilize these resources because they have so much of it. But I think that maybe it's just a little bit overwhelming here. So I have three questions. No, I think I have like two questions that I think the chat wanted me to bring about in terms of gameplay. So I'll just like see what you guys' thoughts on it right now, because they don't really fit anywhere in the conversation. But in general, so a lot of the casual community, when they play, especially in the lower arenas, they'll meet overleveled cards, namely RG, E-Bards, which is why I think a lot of them will complain about it on forums. on this stuff, etc. Like we say some things are broken, but it looks completely different to what they think is broken. So how do you? They're one of the questions is just how to deal with like lower level players maxing out commons and making like ladder difficult for them. Like problems with RG, mortar, etc., etc. So how would you guys address that if you were to like be on the team or something?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would definitely like implement a max level for each like a common, a rare, and epic, like even a legendary. Like what level they could like level something up to
Like
per
certain
trophy
arenas.
range. Yeah,
Yeah, I like
per
that.
trophy range. So like you won't see someone with a level 13 Royal Giant at like 4K. Like that shouldn't be allowed. Like the max thing that they would be allowed is like a level 11 or something. I don't know. Something like
I
that where
don't.
it's just
I don't think you'll see that. And the
yeah.
reason I say that is because
Money.
with
I don't think
with
so
a
either.
lot of, yeah. So there's two components. One is the monetization aspect, which is someone wants to max out a specific deck or specific card. They might be more willing to spend money to get it there, especially if they can over level it and give them that competitive advantage. The other thing there is that you end up with a lot of players where their specific deck that they're used to using on ladder is just all the cards are higher level than the rest of the ones they have. Even though Clash Royale tends to try to balance out the cards that you get, from what I've seen, people will request the specific cards that they want for their deck, and they'll tend to have, and they'll, given how scarce a resource gold is for low level players, that's where they'll devote their gold, and so you end up with definitely an over level deck compared to everything else. And I don't think that's something you would want to give up.
Yeah, and I mean, if I was in Supercell's position, I would do the same thing. Like, I mean, it's your company; you have to make revenue. So I understand that, honestly.
Also the problem with like
that would be cool, but yeah.
sort of like adding that kind of gate to card levels is that that's very like subjective. A lot of people will be like, all right, you have a level 13 RG, like why are you in XXXX trophy range? That's really subjective to like anyone. A lot of people ask me things like, do you guys think that a level 11 at this trophy is good? Right? Like who says is good? Why would the company say this is what you need? Not to mention that like ladder is there sort of as a way to make this revenue trigger people with card levels. I mean, my opinion is sort of like way out there. Like I already understand that like ladder is unfair unless you're super maxed out, unless like you're playing on an even playing ground. So if you meet someone who's put in a lot of money, like you either are gonna have to overcome that with like a skill barrier, or you're just gonna lose. Yeah, so like my advice is always to get good or understand that, or like understand that when you go into ladder, you accept that this will happen to you. If you don't like it, then you should probably play a different game.
Yeah.
But
it's
like
really one of those tough luck things. You got to deal with it.
Yes, or you just go play challenges, or you go play in the tourney realm.
And that's very easy for us to say sitting here on our max accounts or high level accounts.
True, yeah.
Even when I was like a level 11 doing this, I would just play ladder and I'd accept that like my level 11 tower doesn't really do anything against a max RG. That doesn't really give like a concise like answer to what would you do. Maybe I remember seeing one response with these overleveled commons that you could win games with, like E-Barbs, stuff like that. Maybe making them a rare, but then it brings a whole bunch of issues with like monetization. Like you put your money into a max card already. What does a max card mean? How does that transfer to being a rare?
I do think moving forwards, I think the concept of ensuring that you don't have common win conditions might be a good one.
Yeah.
Really, the only common win conditions you have are elite barbs and Royal Giant, right? So if you try to stray away from that moving forwards, then I think that probably is a good approach. But yeah, I think doing it retroactively creates challenges. Like when they change the number of cards that someone needs to get their legendary up or to get their epics, it used to be 200, now it's 100 for level 8. Yeah. They compensated with gems, but it was sort of all over the place of compensation, and I think it was kind of tricky for them with the XP. So yeah, I don't think they should do it retroactively. I think the one constructive thing I would say is if you can't beat them, join them. So go over level your cards.
I agree. Yeah. The one problem I will say with that though is like, if these new cards come out and they're legendaries, I would say are an exception because the level 1 legendaries are pretty good actually, for most people. Especially if you come out with like an epic win condition, less so with a rare, these people aren't going to be able to use that card basically for like months on ladder. Like if I'm a 3,000 trophy player and they come out with an epic, especially maybe less so for a rare win condition, it's like I can't use that card for a really long time. But I guess the good thing Supercell does do is they make it to where you kind of get more of that card if you don't own it. So that's kind of good, but even then it takes a while to level it up. So that's kind of a tough thing. But then again, that's how they make money. So makes sense, I guess.
So the second question, which I think all of you guys will probably have a different answer to, which is awesome. Talking about what makes separates players. Like what is a bad player to you guys? What is a good player? What is a great cat? Yeah. What is a bad player? What is a good player? What is a great player? What is a top elite player?
A top elite player, I consider someone who can like, I don't know. I mean, that's maybe a bad example, but like, I mean, other than the people who are consistently winning in leagues, someone who can push to 200 like is nothing. Top 200, like if they were given, because a bunch of these people are like, oh, if I had a max account, I would be top 200 easy, but it's not true. It's like you would struggle to get inside the top 1,000. With a max account.
And that's something I can actually speak to directly. Sort of in my capacity as managing Nova and being involved in other clans in the past where we help people get on max accounts and everything. There's a lot of players who say like, just give me the max account. I'm going to do incredible. I know I can do it. Mm-hmm. And the large majority of the time, you see that they don't end up being able to perform because people think that at the top of ladder, it's just the people who spend a lot of money. The reality is the top tournament players are all the ones on those accounts right now. So it's
especially
it really
now
extremely competitive. Yeah, especially now. If you look at those top 200 accounts in the game, pretty much every single one of those is played by someone who doesn't own the account because they're played by a top tournament level player.
Yeah.
Sorry, Colton, continue with your answer though.
No, I was just it's the same thing. It's like, no, what I tell people on stream is the top players aren't people with a lot of money. It's people with a lot of money that let top players play on their accounts. I mean, it's true. It's like I would say like 95% of the people in the top 200 are top players playing on a max sponsored account. It's just because they can't compete otherwise. Like unless you're a good player yourself. And I can speak from this because like I'll play on a sponsored account and then it's not even like a competition. I think it's if I was to give my account to a 4,000 trophy player that had been in top 50, they would drop like 300 trophies very, very quickly. Like it's the very best players at the top, even though it does have a level advantage, and you'll see pro players complain about levels as well. So it's not a thing only noobs do, because at the top one level, like a level 5 graveyard, could very well be the difference between me being top 30 and me being top 5 because of how it interacts, especially in a skeleton meta. But that being said, I can still get to top 30. And that's something that not everyone can do. It's because we're really good players. We put in the hours. We know almost every interaction of the game. And yeah, so I think it sucks that not everyone can play top ladder. But I think, especially now, you still are seeing the best players in the game at the very top. Because if you are the best player in the game, you usually don't go undiscovered. Because there are so many outlets that the community has made for pro players or for top players to shine and to consistently outperform others, that you will get noticed if you are that good.
Yeah.
So and I think at that point it's like, especially if you're like unnoticed or you haven't been noticed and you're just amazing and you're winning everything you play, you consistently get 12 wins, you're like at an insane trophy level and you play in these leagues and you're always winning, someone's going to try to pick you up. Like I can almost guarantee you, if you are that good, someone will notice you and they will get you on a max account because then you're going to be cheap. So
Hazard always says it jokingly when people constantly ask him in stream, like, how do you get a max account? How do you get on one? He also just get known and get sponsored, which might sound harsh, but that's sort of what it comes down to. Just become known in the community and become engaged
good, mate.
and show that you're a good player.
Yeah.
That's sort of
people don't just like hand out. I mean, we're gonna touch on this since like you are a manager of Nova, but yeah, a lot of people will just say, "Give me a max account and I'll show you." Doesn't work like that.
No, if you show us, you prove it to us, then maybe you'll have the opportunity.
Exactly, and also like as well, not all max accounts are created equal. Like you'll have a max account that is like really max. It's actually max, and those are given to the very best. Yeah. Or like you'll probably be given a trial run where you're given like these a 13 account, but it like let's see what you can do with it. A lot of people, well, like you said, the majority of you guys who get onto these max accounts will fail. That's just the truth of it, especially in the competitive ladder meta right now. It was in the past much more relevant that if you were 13, you were most likely in the top 200. But right now, it's not the case.
Yeah, not at all. And something interesting actually is, so like I've been through this experience with players where they're incredible players. They're players now who you see them finishing top 20 in the world. But when they first got on their max accounts, they really struggled, and that's because it's a very different meta, almost playing at the top of ladder.
Yeah,
very different.
Experience.
I'm struggling with that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has its own meta. It's like there's a bubble there, and even you'll hear people talk about like where they drop too low and they basically drop below a point of no return, where the meta changes from what it is normally at the top. It completely shifts, so they need to get themselves back up into that bubble again to be able to compete like they normally do.
Yeah, RG.
Exactly.
No more Expo.
So yeah, and you see a lot of that, and so you see these players where it takes time to adjust often, getting onto a max account, where even the players who are doing incredibly well now on it, often they didn't perform well for the first week or for their first season.
Yeah, it takes a little
while. On the topic though, so what makes a good player or a great player or everything? To me, there's a few components. One is sort of just the basic mechanics that someone has. So what is their reaction time? Are they playing things in the right places? Do they understand the interactions that cards have? And then I think there's a strategic component, which is really thinking about what your opponent is doing, what they're looking to get from you, how you can adapt to it and turn that into advantages. But really in the broadest sense, I think it's sort of just adaptability, being able to change on the fly and understand, like I said, what your opponent's doing, being able to adjust to it. And that's what I would say is the top players in the world. That's what they can do. They sort of do it intuitively, but then they combine that with some deep strategic thinking, which often is supported by things like counting elixir, which I know Jake does a lot. Is a bit of.
I think we all do. I mean,
yeah.
If not counting it, we know when we're up or down. I mean, I won't go 1, 2, 3 like on the upset because it's like wasted brain power. But I do know, and there's so many opportunities throughout a match, and I say this lightly, but there's so many opportunities throughout a match to know whether you're up or down. Because I mean, people wait until they get to 10 after like every push, or if I'm playing a card at 10, they play 3 seconds later, they're down 3. It's like not that hard to do. But also once I get that kind of baseline, I will recognize whether that was like positive 2 elixir trade after like this transition, and then I know whether I'm up or down based off of how well I defended, that type of thing. And then I have a really keen mind, and most pro players do, for realizing what cards your opponent has in your hand and purposely baiting them out with certain cards, like a log bait. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that type of stuff, and that's stuff we do. That's stuff we do like almost without thinking about it at this point. But yeah.
And then the part that I think really separates like the great players from the best in the world is I think the I think the great players, they're really good with a deck. They're really good in a meta. I think the best in the world are the ones where you've seen them be fantastic throughout multiple metas. You've seen that they have longevity and that they're not going anywhere. Whereas there's certain ones, not going to call out any names, but they're absolutely incredible. They basically can't be beat with a certain deck archetype. That gets nerfed, and then they're no longer relevant at all, or they really struggle after that. So I think those players are really good, and often then you do see them come back, but the ones who are consistently up there, someone like CMC, who has demonstrated that he can be strong throughout the meta, even if it's with one deck specifically, he can be strong throughout the meta and play pretty much anything to keep himself up there. I think that's really what separates the top level players from the players that are just like on another level.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. So
for me,
yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, for me, there's a lot of things that separate good players from the better players. I'd say like there's so many things, but one of the biggest things is just the amount of time that people play or put into the game. Just knowing all the interactions, knowing that if I drop my E-Wiz, like. Or just knowing like tricks, like dropping the E-Wiz at the right timing, that never messing that up, knowing that you can, you have to drop skeletons in certain situations to like make sure the mini P.E.K.K.A doesn't hit, things like that, where you can conserve elixir, where other people or worse players would over defend, and then they wouldn't be able to utilize that elixir on offense or any other situation. So that's a huge thing. For other mechanical things that are really important are counting elixir. It's not just like a lot of people literally think it's like literally counting the elixir like
1, 2, 3, 4.
No, you're not doing that. You're at least for me, in the most precise way. Most people don't actually do this. They normally just like have a good feel of it because of how many games they've played. But you monitor interactions, or you monitor
that's what I do.
You drop like if you drop a musketeer and then they drop like goblin gang, you know that you're down 1 elixir. So if you're at if you're at 9 elixir, then they're going to be at full. They're going to be at 10 elixir. Yep. So that's how you keep track of what you drop compared to theirs, and then you look at the elixir bars and find out the corresponding elixir based on those interactions or whatever you drop. And the top players do that, and they always have a feel of, so I know their card order as well, and then they have this much elixir, so therefore I don't have to poison because he doesn't have enough elixir for like if you're running graveyard poison, you know that he doesn't have enough elixir for minion horde or something like that.
Yep, exactly.
And that's like the biggest thing about that is for me at least, if I play a deck that I'm extremely comfortable with, it's like my graveyard deck because of how many grand challenges I've played. It frees up a lot of like thinking power and a lot of like it makes me able to count elixir, and it makes at least it's easier to count elixir just because of the sheer amount of time that you've spent playing a deck. So to recap, it's time, it's being able to count elixir, and then it's also on top of that like knowing card order and card rotation. And as Matt said, I think the best players are able to play a ton of different decks like CMC. CMC's shown that he's able to play almost every single deck in the game. And other people that in competitive gameplay, if you know that they're only capable of like playing 3 musketeers or something, like, I mean, it's going to be pretty easy to counter deck them. Or if they're only able to play minor, like, why don't you just put a mini P.E.K.K.A in your deck and end the game? Well. Yeah, exactly. So there's stuff like that you want to be able to not really be counterable in competitive gameplay because you want to be unpredictable, and that's really important to just be good with a lot of different decks. And it takes time and it takes effort, and very few players like actually take the time to learn a lot of different decks. And that's definitely what separates like CMC and other people, because you never know what deck they're gonna run.
Yeah, I agree. Like I can run like at least 5 different decks right now, and I think that's really important for top players to be unpredictable. Absolutely.
So like before, I know Colton that you have to go really soon, so I want to touch on this before you go. We're seeing a lot of like esports leagues sort of pop up, and a lot of homegrown and just I guess companies won. We know that Supercells is about to throw another big tournament. What's that? Foreshadowing to that is they're looking for NGE, the people who did the CRNAO qualifiers and stuff, are looking for casting talent for Clash. That means there's going to be something to cast, which also means that there's going to be a tournament. So, I know that you have been in a lot of these situations where you've gone to King's Cup, where you've participated in CRNAO. You have a lot of this experience, especially living in California. You've even went to cast NorCal. Can you tell us about that experience? What do you think this? Like, I don't. You have to talk about being if you got accepted to the whole thing, whatever. But just general thoughts on this, and you guys can chime
so
in if
for
you
the
want.
the NorCal thing, it was run by like a couple of like younger guys. It was okay. It was a good experience. I was like slightly underwhelmed with like production, and the stream wasn't that great, and a bunch of people knew that, and they said as much. But as far as the experience, I just think like these tournaments and anything, especially for me as like a top player, and I get to interact with other guys, all crap, backstab, all the hammers guys, some of the top players. It's just like a really fun experience, and I love this type of atmosphere. And if Supercell could do more stuff like that, that would be awesome, obviously. But that's kind of also I was gonna say that's where I started to learn. Like I really enjoy casting as much as I do playing, honestly. And I actually had to kind of carry that because my co-caster wasn't as experienced, and I pretty much ended up talking for 6 hours straight. But I actually enjoyed it, and that's kind of why I decided I want to apply, and I've been kind of pursuing casting as well. I don't know. I mean, at this time, I'm still one of the best players, so I'm not going all out on casting.
So humble too.
Yeah, no, I for the most part, if people ask me, like, if someone says who one of the best players is, I won't say myself, but I am realistic. Like, I can see based off of how I play that I'm so good. Like, if I get on a max account right now, I can be top 50 and in like 2 hours. But
Dude, stop slacking then. Let's go. Get on
I
it.
don't think screw
Get
that.
on it.
We got like 2 weeks. I can wait until the 2 days before, and then I can get to top 50, and then I can wait, and then I can play the last day. That's what I do.
Yeah, so there's no point right now.
I just do grand challenges on my main account if I want to play that bad. It's like I'd rather get my own cards. It's like I don't know. I want someone like wanted to give me some money to push up real quick, and then I would be happy to do it at any time. But yeah, no, it's so casting was pretty cool, and then I just think any type of these events, even if anything, it shows. And I was talking to like Mastery Matt about this. If anything, it shows that anyone can put these tournaments together, and it brings a decent amount of people. And then of course, if you get like YouTubers involved, then it'll bring a lot of people. Like at King's Cup, they had to turn people down because they didn't show up on time or have like their prepaid ticket or whatever. So I think it's really good. I think these events need to be more numerous, and I'm looking forward to Clash Royale's future because I really feel like it's trending upwards, especially with this league, which could be ongoing. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel like this is the make it break it point, and it's still early on, but if they are actually taking back the feedback that they had from CRNAO and they do this right, this could be it to like give the test. Like, it's no longer a test run. This is like they're doing it now. They do it wrong, then that's probably gonna be it. But if they do it right, this becomes the second mobile game esport, which is like a pretty big sell considering that Vainglory is already there.
I think it'll be bigger than the first. So
Yeah, it already has. Here's the thing: Clash Royale has an absolutely massive player base, right? It's almost, even if you look at the traditional esports, it's up there with the biggest ones, if not exceeding it. The challenge is really what direction they go with it. They need to take lessons from CRNAO. There were some things they did fantastically. I actually think the qualification format with the online tournaments and everything and flying people out, I think parts of that were really good.
Beautifully done.
And that's why they have that's the company that is working on this is Indie. It's not Matador.
Yeah, there's that one part though. There's that one part, arena battles, which
That was Matador. As
oh,
was
that was
Crown.
Matador.
Yeah, it was basically two companies. NGE did all the like they basically implemented SMC rules. It was all clean. Everybody signed up.
It was done by them.
Yeah, the qualifiers were, and then like on top of that, the casting, the production was actually good, right? It was good. We had Rumham, Rainy.
It wasn't overdone. It wasn't cheesy. It was true to the game. It was true to the pro players that were qualifying. And then they turned us into, for lack of harsher words, they turned us into a joke in the second and third rounds. And even Crown Duel, they started the freaking tournament off. These people that have gone through so much to qualify, they started off with a best of one. For the sake of their broadcast, it's like you can't do that. You can't do that to players that have worked so hard to get here. At the minimum, you do best of three. It was kind of ridiculous, and it was like demeaning as a player, especially one that had to experience it firsthand. Like I'm not someone to hold grudges, so I don't mind it. And I know it's not Supercell's fault so much, and I think they're learning from it. But I missed out on yeah, I mean, I missed out on like $1,500 because I didn't eat I had to eat pancakes while I'm playing. It's ridiculous. But I think they're learning from it, and the fact that NGE is in charge really gives me good feeling.
Yeah,
hope really. So.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, "This is good." If they went with the other one, I think everyone just called it a joke right from the outset.
That's what happens when you put a reality TV production company in charge of an esports tournament, right?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
What do you really expect there? And along those lines too, I saw the contract that they made players sign. Colton, I'm sure you signed it. The contract was all over the place in terms of obligations, where it obligated them to the players to basically, if they want to. Everything in esports had to be done through Matador for the next year, based on what's been in the contract. And so trainer Garrett, I know, didn't sign it because he was scared off by it, and it was just it wasn't suited at all to esports.
Nice. So gotcha.
The direction they're going now is definitely
way better.
Yeah, it's definitely way better and an improvement. It'll be interesting to something what they do, but they really need a consistent competitive format, and I think that's something we'll likely see coming.
And I think it's something that would get big because I stand by this. I think casual player bases, as shown by things like League of Legends, casual player bases, especially ones that are as large as that of Clash Royale, they do and they don't. I mean, and I think it's evidenced by CRNAO in the course of that. People enjoy seeing the best players in the game do their thing against the best competition. They don't like seeing the game that even if they play it casually, they don't like seeing the game treated as a joke and as like a humorous thing. Even the casual players, because for example, I'd be like a casual League of Legends player now. I don't play it anymore, but I watch almost every. And I think this is kind of where teams come into, and I really hope Supercell moves in this direction, although they don't look like they are at this point. I think teams and building up these teams and giving you someone to root for. Me, even as a casual player, I still watch League of Legends, and I watch my team play every opportunity I get, even though I don't play the game itself anymore. And I think that's an atmosphere that Clash Royale can cultivate and allow to form. As long as they're willing to do so, and I think they're worried about the casual fan base not being interested. But I think, as evidenced by other esports, that shouldn't be a concern because I think very well if they give it enough publicity, it will become a big thing within even the casual players.
Yeah,
and I think one thing that really speaks to that right now is if you look at Twitch viewership for Clash Royale. I think there's really a boom right now around competitive players streaming.
Exactly.
Where you're seeing significant growth. I know Jake just got his sub button. He has been pulling in great viewership. Hazard is pulling in 1,000 organic viewers a stream now.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
And started a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And so it's really, you see a lot of the competitive players pulling in great viewership now. And I think if you look at Clash with Ashes videos, doing more and more features on competitive players because it's what its viewers are demanding. There's definitely demand for it within the scene. And then the other thing I think with in terms of team versus individual is there's almost this paradoxical concept with Clash Royale where it's an individual game. Other than 2v2, in the end, it's down to you and against your opponent. At the same time, I don't think that's why people stay with the game. I think people stay with the game largely because of the community, because of like the most basic form of that is the clans. Now, obviously, there's big orgs around that, like Nova branches out to probably over 100 clans. But the clans and the community and knowing people there is really what keeps you involved. And that's something that you can really support through team-based gameplay and through team-based competitions. And so it really doesn't make sense to me that that Supercell isn't looking to explore that route, given that it really is why people love the game, I think, and what keeps people coming back. I know that if I was just playing this game 1v1, there was no clan system or anything, I probably would have given it up in the first month.
Yeah.
It's the people that keep me coming back. And I think being able to have really be able to identify with a team that you're cheering on, and having more of an identity than just I like this player. I think that really helps. I think it tells a much better story that keeps people engaged with the competitive scene.
And I think like and really it's a reflection of what the community has already made. With Clash Wars, with RPL, with CRL, we don't have an individual based league. Yeah. We only have team leagues that have between 3, 5, 7 players, or 14 actually, 7 split in half. We only have leagues that either have small teams or large teams. We don't have individual events. And every now and then we'll have a tournament, but that's not an ongoing thing. Mm-hmm. The things that are ongoing are team based. Even though it's 1v1, I don't see why it has to be individual focused. You can very well do teams. And every successful esport up to this point is primarily teams. Like
Hearthstone has struggled because there's and StarCraft. I think
individuals. It doesn't have as much people in the StarCraft too. It's like it's because you don't have as much people, and not just because it's 1v1 doesn't mean it can't be team based. The only thing that's somewhat successful is like I guess Smash, but it's like it doesn't have to be that way for Clash Royale. And I think trying to go in this team direction in the infancy of the esport would be like a good thing. But of course, this is just my opinion, but I think it is the way that the community should push and the way that Supercell should go with it for their own interest as well as ours. So.
Yeah, especially for your own interests. Like the, I mean, when you're a casual player, if anything, if there's like narrative in the game, if you're just like told one day that, like, let's say Hammers and I don't know, Mastery or Nova or something, they have a big rivalry. That's something to get behind. It's something that like they can kind of root for. It goes like all in a circle. You have this scene, this pro scene, these players that you kind of look up to, and they're like making a narrative, they're making the story. It's going to be really cool. You don't have to like fabricate anything. I think that's what they kind of did with like Matador. They said like this competition on its own can't stand, so we need entertaining people. And then we got like that bald dude and the other guy, and they were like the driest. They were so dry. But the only praise that came to us,
the game. Yeah,
the praise primarily went to the casters, Clash with Ash and Rumham, because they both knew the game. They had good synergy. There was a story behind them. They knew the people playing, so it was all good. But onto them, it was just dry. It was no one was laughing. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
I was
like
there and I was uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you want to do this, like you have the tools. Like you bring it toward that kind of team competition. Like you already have the clans here, you already have the stories here. You have these awesome players in part of these really awesome leagues. They will make their own magic, and you just have to facilitate it. You have to support it.
Yeah. On that note, actually, something very relevant to that is, so sort of the primary leagues that have happened recently, the primary grassroots leagues are CRL, Clash Wars, CRCS, and what am I missing here? RPL.
RPL, yeah.
And those are the leagues that sort of the primary grassroots leagues that really facilitate team-based gameplay. We're currently exploring the option of combining 3 or 4 of those leagues together.
That would be insane.
Into one super league to really push the team competitive aspect forwards. That means all of the people who have been behind those leagues and understand what works will be together
and the
be
prize
together.
pools come together, and
Exactly.
and you can do and you can have like a bunch of people administrating it. You can make it more frequent. Yeah, I think that would be awesome, honestly. As long as the matches aren't far and few between, as long as they would make it more often, that'd be really good.
Yeah, and that's something we're exploring at the moment,
Yeah,
which
that'd
we're
be
really hoping to move forward with. And with that, the dream is, if you look at what happened in Clash of Clans, you have the War League there, where it was ran grassroots league, same as here, and then Supercell ended up, I believe, flying out some of the players on the final from the final two clans to compete in the live event. Did a broadcast with Galadon and Clash with Ash, I think, or someone. So that's really the dream here, which is building it to the point where it gets Supercell support, and especially if they choose not to pursue team-based gameplay, then this might really show them the case for it, and it might show the community interest in it. And like WCL, as much as there were huge issues with that, it showed that something like that, you can get huge viewership with it, with the right people backing.
Finals on the like Spanish broadcast had like 80,000 views.
You can't ignore that. You can't ignore that viewership. It's like there, the player base is there. A lot of people will look at Twitch viewership and they'll be like, "Oh, this game is like nothing." But then, like, take into account that this is a world game. This is an international game. The Japanese community, Spanish community, the what's that? There's a lot of Swedish people who play. It's, European, Canadian.
Trimax pulls like 12K viewers.
Yeah, exactly. The German, like, there's so much that's untapped that's like right here. You can't ignore it. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, and so like I said, I have to go real quick. But before I leave, and then before I leave, I was gonna like address the point a little bit away from this though. Is one of the talking points I really wanted to put my input on was diversity within like what's a good amount of like diversity for the game. And this was like a response to a tweet. And I've seen people argue both ways, and I see both points. But personally,
wait. First, we gotta give some context to this, because like you just say tweet, and like we understand because we talked about it, but they won't. Okay. So basically, Electrify, who is one YouTuber who's I think he's Israeli. He's an Israeli player, top player. He currently participated in a tournament. We believe he lost, not sure, but basically he tweeted out saying that this game won't ever become an esport because skill is irrelevant because counter decks exist. Now a responding tweet was that, or what he agrees on is that the Goizen meta was probably the most skillful because there were basically two decks that were the best: Minor Poison, Goizen. So if you were the best at those decks, you always could beat everything else. Now the issue is that because the game is evolving and there's new cards coming out every single day, or not every single day, like every month or so, whatever, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the diversity in the game has like gone way up, which it has. Now, when you have diversity in the game, you don't have a deck that can beat everything. It means that some decks just lose to others, aka counter decking. Yeah. So that's what Colton is referring to, and go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so that is true. Like if you had skill, and honestly, I think if you really want to get down to it, the best players only used Minor Poison. They didn't use Giant. The average to good players used Giant because it was easier. The best players used Minor and only Minor. They would use that one deck day in and day out in every single 15K they played in. And not saying that's a bad thing. The best players really did play the deck better than anyone else, but it's boring as hell as a viewer and as a player, in my opinion too, to play the same thing over and over and over again. And it's absolutely terrible from a YouTube standpoint. It doesn't allow for more content. It doesn't allow you to do more decks. And this was a deck that was dominant for months. It wasn't just like a short-term thing to where it was absolutely dominant. The best players only played it. So I think it's bad from a viewer's point. It's bad from like on a player's point, because you have to play the same thing over and over again. And when one deck becomes meta, it comes down to your card rotation more than anything else, because you're in mirror deck situations. You can say it comes down to skill, and sometimes it does, but I also think that it heavily comes down to card rotation. because if you get the better rotation, you win the game, and it's really hard to fix that throughout a game without taking too much damage that you get past the point of no return. Especially with minor, to where it's like if you get a damage of lead, it's not really that hard to maintain it throughout a game if you're equal skill level. And then the other thing is, like, I think, and this is how every games do it. Counters exist, hard counters exist to punish decks that actually dominate other things. That's like, if you're gonna play Siege, you're gonna absolutely dominate some matchups like Spellbait, but you are going to get destroyed by like Giant Hog, and that's okay, because decks are made to counter each other, to balance each other. And that's why I think diversity is good, because it gives viewers something to watch that isn't super boring. And it gives players enough decks that are viable to change up their play styles and to really show that they can do more than play just one thing. And I think that's a good thing. And decks that are really risky should have hard counters, because they also dominate other matchups. So I think it's just a trade-off. Do you want to be a control player that matches up pretty well against everything and has slightly bad or slightly good matchups? Or do you want to play something like Beatdown or Siege that have super high good and then super bad matchups as well? So that's kind of thing I wanted to tune in. And is it okay if I like hop out of the call, by the way, or?
Yeah, you can totally.
Okay, yeah. So thank you guys. Thank you for having me on. Sorry I couldn't make the full time.
Of course, it's almost like 2 hours. So
yeah.
Man,
And I'll be
nice
happy
night.
to listen to what you guys had an opinion on that, because I do see the other side, to where I hate hard counters, but I don't think it's a bad thing, and I don't think it plays in as much when you're in like a best of 3, best of 5 situation. So that was kind of my opinion. So all right, see you guys.
See you.
Easy, man.
Let's see what happens if I do that. Okay. All right. So, I mean, do you guys have anything to chime in on that? For, like, deck diversity,
Honestly,
counter decking?
I pretty much completely agree with him. I think if you get to a rock paper scissors meta where there's literally 3 decks, one like A counters B, B counters C, C counters A, I think that is really messy and not something that you want. I don't think there's quite that much. I don't think it's quite that linear at the moment, though. I think there's even more diversity of decks, and I think there's enough range within them and enough innovation right now within the meta that you don't have that. And so I do think it's healthy for the game. In the end, sure, if you force everyone to play one deck or everyone to play 2 decks, or neither of which hard counter each other, yeah, you're going to probably see who's a better player, but we don't really want to be playing a game called Goizen, I think, for the next 2 years. I think we want to be playing a game that has diversity, that has options, and has the ability to innovate new decks and strategies. I think, like you talked about, card order is one thing that can really help mitigate the concept of getting hard countered, where at least if you have something good in your starting hand, it can help you, and that's something, like we said, we can mitigate that with allowing you to sub 1 card out at random, like we talked about earlier.
For me, for me, objectively, for the betterment of the game, and just for like the longevity of the game, honestly, like I have to agree with Colton and Matt on that. That it just has to diversity, and just like not keeping the game from being stale is like really important, honestly. But as a player, I think that there's something about just having the better player win in minor poison versus minor poison, because you know what your opponent's running, and knowing, like, I honestly wish there were like more tournaments like you guys know what decks you're running, and then it has to be a mirror matchup, and it's entirely based off of skill. Or I think a lot of like cycle decks, cycle versus cycle, I think a lot of those matchups are skill based completely. I feel like you can fix your card order a lot easier in cycle versus cycle matchups compared to like if you're playing graveyard versus graveyard, my graveyard cycles. I think you're able to fix your card rotation pretty easily. I think that if you're playing golem versus golem, and one guy has a pump and then the other guy just doesn't, and pumps the last card for them, I think then the game's over. But
I think it's a hazard of playing golem, or just like those kind of decks in general.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like your choice to do it. So I can kind of see that. And just like what Cohen said, like control playstyle doesn't ever really have like a good matchup, but also doesn't have a bad matchup. If you only play a risky deck like Expo, then you'll know that like Giant Graveyard probably screws you over, or like really heavy decks screw you over, but you'll win really hard on other ones. I can kind of see what you're talking about in terms of like seeing who is better in a way, like in this matchup, in this kind of game, because it's sort of hard to see that. Um, oh, like maybe in the future they'll add in these kind of really cool like tournaments where you can kind of do that. But I still subscribe to like, doesn't really matter. I feel like the better player will win, or the one who's playing better will win at the end of the day. I like in general. I just like don't really agree with Electrify. I think he's just sort of pissed off. Yeah, a little bit pissed off that he just lost.
Yeah, I mean, it also is like the game that we signed up for, right? Like sometimes you're gonna run an Expo into a Royal Giant, you're gonna lose in the competitive match, but that's what it is when you're not like given the same starting blocks like as in StarCraft 2. Everyone has a different building block. Everyone has a different objective, and sometimes there's conflicting things, and you're not gonna be able to get what you want.
Yeah.
So,
and even like in that game, they're just gonna find another thing to talk about. Like in here, you'll talk about counter decking. StarCraft, they'll talk about like cheesing Zergs, or like a 2 racks, or like a 6 pool. Like it's like they're gonna find something to talk about no matter what.
And something here I think that's important to recognize, and this isn't relevant to ladder because you don't know who you're going to be playing against. But in terms of when you're playing in a competitive setting, so you're playing. I know I'm going to be playing against Jake, and I know that he's been playing a lot of Lava Loon. So I might bring something that I might take that bet and bring something that I know has a good matchup against it. So there is strategy behind what you bring and taking the risk there. And knowing your opponent, and so that deck building and just what deck you bring in general, I think it's important not to overlook that as a strategic element of the game and something which goes beyond simply once you're into that 3 or 6 minute game.
Yeah, which is an entirely different skill in itself. Like being really good at a best of 5. Like there are a few players to me that stand out like that. Like Surgical Goblin is really good at best of 5s because he has these like he at least has 3 or 4 decks that he's really good with, and he'll just switch it on the fly or use mental games. That's a whole different area that like you can't just throw away with counter decking. That's not a thing anymore. Like if he just guesses you over and over again, that's something entirely
that's your fault.
Exactly. If if you bring an Expo to an RG, like why are you even playing Expo? You accept that defeat. Like you can't say anything on that.
Yeah, you're taking that risk on.
Exactly. But I mean, like if you're playing Expo and ladder and you meet someone who's running RG E-Barbs or something, you also take that risk. You can't do anything. It's fine. All right, yeah. So moving on from that, so we do have NiteLight here. We do have Matt here, who's a manager for Nova. There was some questions that were directed toward you. If you want to answer, if you don't mind answering. So you've been a manager of, I believe, many different top clans. Do you have like?
Yeah, so my background is I started day 1 of Clash Royale soft launch. I think it was like January 4th. I was visiting my girlfriend at university at the time for the week, and I didn't have school yet, so I was basically stuck at home most of the day with nothing to do. So I basically just played Clash Royale for that whole first week, and so I started getting into it, and I started off with Crazy Canadians, which was we peaked being like a top 5 clan. We then merged into NiteLight, who was really a powerhouse for the early game. I think it's a name that a lot of people still know.
Yeah.
If you see light at the end of someone's name, that's because of NiteLight. Like that's our legacy, and there's a ton of people with it there. It's simply because of that, including some top players. But so with NiteLight, from there, we ended up, just based on some troubles, we ended up moving on, and I was helping lead Genesis Gaming. From there, Synergy, and then now finally settling down at Nova. And that's a lot of movement, but it's sort of just the natural transitions that happen, merging with other clans when we recognize that we shared similar values and we could help each other out. And all of those were probably 3 to 4 months, and then merging into something else.
So I guess like specifically you've gained a lot of experience on the way with both managing clans, being a part of them, experiencing all of that top level gameplay. What would be your advice in like, I guess, managing a clan? What have you seen? Has anything like stood out to you about the clan system? What do you most like remember about this whole journey?
Yeah, so there's a few things there. If you want to manage a clan, first thing I'm going to tell you is don't, and then really think about it hard. It's think about how much work it's going to be, and then quadruple that, and maybe you'll be getting close. And this is something you'll hear from anyone who's managing a top clan or is looking to really grow their clan to a competitive level, which is it's every single day. You're like, I would wake up a half hour early specifically so I could run through messages and respond to people. It can become almost like a full-time job to manage a top level competitive clan. When you're managing a more casual clan, it's definitely a lot less work. And the big thing I'm going to say is just really develop relationships. Develop relationships within your clan, with your players, with your leaders and elders, and develop relationships outside of your clan. That's really what led me to be successful. So when we did these merges when Genesis merged with Alpha to create Synergy, I already knew the guys on the other end of that. I developed relationships with them. I knew them from the community, and so we were comfortable working together. So really just this game is all about community. So really take that to heart, build a community within your clan, engage in the larger community overall that is Clash Royale. And really just recognize that behind those player names, there's people there that you want to connect with, and which you can connect with on a very personal level at times.
Really heartening. It's really a good advice. Yeah, it's pretty also, solid advice.
So on that note, though, be wary of the people behind those accounts. There's some sketchy shit that happens. It's some very sketchy shit. I know of over like $50,000 worth of accounts being stolen.
Scammers are everywhere right now.
Yeah, so be careful also. And on that note, actually, sorry, it's just something really important. There's people that have been going around claiming they're Nova representatives, claiming they're like 50 Kings representatives, saying like, give me your account details so that I can get you on a max account, or like, give me your account details and I'll gem it. No one from Nova will ever reach out to you like that. Realistically, we're reaching out to the top level players, and if we are reaching out to you, check our Twitter. You'll be able to see the number of followers we have. If it looks sketchy, it is sketchy, and it's not us. And so just be really careful with who you're giving your account info out to. In general, the rule of thumb is never give out your account info to anyone, no matter what the reason.
No one. No one respectable will ever ask you for your account info. Yep. Just as a general rule. So another thing, I know that you, Jake, can kind of chime in on this. So like right now, more and more players, especially really good players, are getting contracted by top level teams who can pay out right now. What do you think that is doing for the future of Clash Royale in esports? And conversely, like how is that affecting clans that can't really contract players or fly them out? Some I don't know, like a small org that's kind of budding. They don't have money, but they want to enter it. So like for an example, we have like you guys like Nova with a lot of money in their pockets that you guys can kind of contract. But like what about a team that wants to like compete but can't really buy out players or anything?
So this is a really tricky issue, and it's actually sort of a hot button topic that some of the primary league organizers and representatives from different orgs were talking about earlier today, specifically in the context of poaching players. But in general, I think that the transition to contract-based play is fantastic. it begins to legitimize the game as an esport, and it's also great for the players. It gives them opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise, whether that's simply playing on a max account, whether that's a salary, travel to tournaments, whatever it may be. It's opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. So it's great for them in most respects. It's definitely, there's a big disparity in terms of the resources that different orgs have. I think that's sort of just the nature of a business, though.
Yes.
There's not much you can do about that. What I do think is important, if you're not working with much resources, is you do the things that you can. So you build a really strong community, and you build a really good environment that players want to be a part of. You'll find that often that's worth a lot to players, and they may turn down higher offers for that community, or it may be that they just look at the benefits, and that might and that's at their discretion. But there are things you can do to help alleviate those concerns. And then also, I think over time we are going to transition to more parity within salaries for contracted players, especially as hopefully big orgs that are establishing on their games start to move into Clash Royale. You're going to start to see that where it's going to be a fairly standardized salary across the board with some variance, but really it'll be much more standardized than it is now. And that's sort of just something we need to wait for. We're in a transitionary period right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I personally got a few offers from multiple other teams and just teams in general. I think that it's the first thing that people should consider when like going to look at a team is they should consider the environment of the team and if they actually want to be a part of the organization. And I think like the resources of the organization and everything else should be considered secondary. The team has to be stabilized. The team has to be an environment where honestly players want to go to. Like honestly, for me, when I was looking at teams, I was looking at places where my friends are, where I actually want to see myself being. Like, what's a good practice environment for me? Does everyone that they're looking at, does everyone that they have on the team want to be practicing? Are they like mature enough for me to actually want to spend time around? All those things are considered by all the top players, I presume. Like there are a lot of more important things than just money and capital and just being able to provide like things for players. It's a lot of it's just the environment and just the leadership of organizations as well. I also am really happy about just in general how there were so many offers. I was really surprised about it, like how many teams are actually are coming into the scene. Like it's reassuring for me, and it's reassuring for like just the esports scene of Clash Royale in general that like a lot of people are starting to take note that it could potentially take off and just become really big.
Mm-hmm.
So from that standpoint, I'm really happy about it, and yeah, I can't wait to see what's in CR's future.
And yeah, there's a lot of teams. It's if you look at it, it's Nova now, Mastery, Elite Gaming, Mucklash, Queso, Phoenix, Hammers, Vitality. That's
you got all of them on lock. Yeah, you actually have. What's it? Yeah, there's Vitality. I think Millennium.
Yeah,
Millennium as well. Yeah, so that's 9 orgs right there that are either paying players now or getting into it imminently. So yeah, it's happening pretty quickly. We really are transitioning to that stage where players are becoming professional players. It's really just we need to wait and see what Supercell does with it.
Yeah, no, it's extremely exciting. Just I just hope that it doesn't. So like, there's a problem right now, and I guess you could call it a problem in like other esports where you have venture capitalists basically coming in with a bunch of money or something, and then they will buy out places or teams or whatever, and then there'll be like I'm not sure if it'll happen here, but it'll become like an explosion of money into the scene, and people don't really know what to do with it, and then it'll get like I think it's a little bit too early to talk about it, but I still feel like, especially because we're in such like a transitionary period where we don't know what's gonna happen. You gotta still be super wary about, especially what contracts you're being given, who's approaching you. Be wary about, I guess just like being conscientious about who you're around, etc. Like your environment. Things to like take note, especially with how it's kind of playing out.
Yeah, and along the lines of those like salary explosions, you look at CS:GO, where there's some players that might be getting paid like $20,000 a month,
Yeah, like a
like
lot.
absolutely insane numbers, and you can hear some of the orgs talk about it, or like the owners, and they say, I have no idea how they're balancing their budget with this. The only way I see that working is if they're taking a loss with it.
Yeah,
Like
no,
our
I think
budget
they
certainly
are.
can't be balanced like that. So yeah, that's definitely something that we need to be worried about long term. If we get anywhere near those numbers, though, honestly, I'll probably be happier than anything.
Just to see it happen, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
but
definitely right now, sort of the initial teams getting into the scene are going to set the fair market value for players. And then that'll change as different opportunities become available, as the competitive scene gets fleshed out a bit more. So that's definitely going to change a lot. But really, it's these initial teams that are going to set the standard.
so all right. I think that was a pretty damn good discussion on, I guess, overall, just like your experiences with managing clans on the competitive scene. Is there anything else you want to talk about there?
No, I don't think so. Just the one thing I'll say really quickly is, if you really want to grow a clan
Mhm.
to be competitive, to be on global, um, don't get stuck with ego. Don't get stuck with the name you have. If there's merges that can help you, where you can build a larger community, do it. Recruit the players that are going to be able to help you grow, who believe in what you're doing. And if you do that and really commit to it, you're going to be able to. I've been working with a clan called Midwinter to help them grow and sort of talk them through what I did. To grow the clans I was at earlier on, and they're seeing a lot of success with it. They're on global now, and they're continuing to rise both competitively and on ladder. So really, just if you're willing to put the work in, do it, and really focus on building that community and bringing in new players and new groups who share the same dream.
Fantastic. So I guess like for like the last few topics that we have here, just like touching really fast on the new cards that are about to come out. Bandit just came out. Thoughts on Bandit? Thoughts on Bats? The Night Witch, new other legendary other than Bandit, and then we have the heal spell. So whichever you guys want to like take that away.
Yeah. So do you want me to hit all three of them at once, or
Yeah,
just one
yeah.
individually?
Just
All
like
right.
how do you
So
feel about them in general?
so first off, Bandit, I think it's either really good or really bad based on what you're playing against. For example, if you run Bandit into a Bar Pipe Graveyard deck, you're gonna lose. That's just how it is. No matter what. And I think Bandit's generally like it could be good with minor control, but I've seen it a little bit more successful in tank decks, honestly. But
Golem,
also
right?
not with
No.
Golem, more so like Giant actually with
Mhm.
Electro Wizard and Lightning and minions. But in competitive play, like if you run it with Golem, you're just gonna lose the Lava Hound every single time. So that's more the deterrent than anything.
It feels like you almost have to get lucky with Bandit. It feels like a lot of it's out of your
Um,
control.
I think yeah, I think so as well. I don't. The one thing that I don't like about the Bandit is how it if you log it, it doesn't actually stop the charge, and that is I think it's really bad. I think it's a horrible mechanic in the game. I don't really
I think
like.
I think it just needs a longer load time for its charge.
Yeah,
To
maybe
fix that.
that. I think that it's not an overpowered card at all. I just don't really like how it just the log just doesn't do anything to it. I think for 3 elixir, it should definitely get stopped. It should be like the equivalent of a prince that's charging, honestly, in my opinion.
Maybe.
So moving on to what was the next card? The heal spell. I think it's going to be extremely overpowered with Bloon. I don't want to see it, and I don't think that card has any place in the game. I obviously don't think it's going to be used with any cycle decks or anything. I think easily just take out the Golem Balloon Rage deck. You take out Rage and you put in Heal Spell, and then you're chilling. You're gonna do really well. And there's very little thought process, very little things going on in that. I think that Heal is going to be a bad card for the game, and I don't think it really has a place in the game.
There was a time when Supercell ruled out the possibility of ever having any kind of heal card in the game.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that list.
They put out a list. They put out a list of what they've ruled out to put in the game. Heal was on that list, and then what do we see? We see heal stuff.
I don't see, like, why would you want heal in this kind of game? Like, I can understand heal in like almost any other game where your character or your single character is taking damage. I'm like, okay, you can heal that, be fine. But in this game, it's so much about trading and understanding like how much this is gonna do, and then just suddenly you heal, and it's like, but it throws everything into whack.
Yeah.
I almost feel.
Yeah.
Obviously, it'll be consistent. It's not like it's gonna heal a different amount every time or something, but it's almost gonna feel like that. I feel like when people will heal and then it's sort of like, damn, what the hell just happened?
It's another card that it's another card that's not really like you're not able to utilize it for like a lot of different things. Like you're not able to use it on defense, right? It's not really like
it'll feel like clone. I feel
it'd
be very cheesy and used in very specific scenarios. Preferably like what kind of scenarios is clone good with? I wonder.
Oh, Balloon Death Day.
Oh, Balloon, right? Lava Loon. I wonder what heal would be good with. Yeah, there's a lot of very similar things that I am really apprehensive about with this card, and I'm not sure what changed their mind.
I'm really worried.
Yeah, but like
maybe they ran out of cards.
moving on from heal, I feel like the complete tinfoil, like the foil to this card, is bats. I'm glad that they're adding another common support card that I feel like everyone will use, and I will have very like I think a skill ceiling. There will be very different ways of using this card, and it'll be. I feel like we've needed this for a while. Just another cycle card that is sort of unique. Mm-hmm.
I think bats will be decent. Hopefully will help against Lava Lunamit, just having another air targeting troop that's actually viable with like just having utility. Even then, I don't think it'll make a dent in Lava Loon, but just having the option is nice.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's going to impact Graveyard the most. I think people are going to actually have to start running Zap or something, because you can't actually just justify poisoning, like you can justify poisoning minions. Can you actually justify poisoning like single elixir skeletons or goblins? No, you really can't, unless it's double elixir and you're up a ton.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like in bare bones, graveyard poison and double elixir is 12 elixir. Like bare bones is night, graveyard, and poison. So like 12 elixir is a lot, and if they're only expending 2 elixir to counter it, I highly doubt you're going to be up 10 elixir to actually like justify that push. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of it's hard to comprehend how. I think bats are going to be the graveyard counter that everyone's searching for, and I think it's going to be really good for the game. Yeah.
Night Witch, I actually think, from what I've heard from people who have play tested it, like with a developer build, I've heard it's really good. It's like a mini P.E.K.K.A. with the damage it outputs.
I've heard it hits like a truck.
From melee.
The same.
Yeah.
It's like a mini P.E.K.K.A. but then spawns like flying bats. I think it could be a really good card.
You know what I love about this card is that they tried continuously to buff the witch, and then they just said, fuck it, I'm gonna make a Night Witch. I'm just gonna make what the witch should have been from the start.
Didn't they rename it? I think they're renaming it Dark Witch or something.
I don't know, but I hope they make a Dark Bomber just to make me like ruffle. I will like, oh my god.
Dark Bomber.
Yeah, oh my god. I'm just so glad that they accepted that they made a card that is only good for people who just start. They're not pushing it into the hands of people who already know the game.
I remember the days of running giant skeleton, witch, goblin barrel.
Oh,
And
God.
That was meta. That was meta.
I'm glad I played after that. Because I don't remember that. I played during the age of, what's that? Hog Rider double defense and mortar rocket. I love that meta. That was really fun.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
I played right after that. He's just got nerfed or something. I don't
When did you guys start?
I started when I guess when P.E.K.K.A. Double Prince Freeze was like super good. You know, when that meta was like insane. It was after the Helsinki tournament. That's what I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so early summer probably.
Yeah, like H2O clans like that
Yeah.
were like super big, and TV Royale was full of like Dodie and Dopa and all that stuff. Even Molt was on TV Royale a lot. I remember.
Even Molt.
Yeah.
I started when like Hyphonics did his first stream where he shaved something off.
Is that how you
Just something.
Yeah.
Introduction to Clash Royale?
No. My brother showed me it, and then that day I went on Twitch and we were chilling, and we're like, "Oh, let's go see the first streamer." And he shaved his hair or something. Or
how did you not run the other direction? Right.
Because he's like, I like this game now. I'm all about guys shaving their something on stream. Totally Clash.
He didn't shave his eyebrows at that point.
Wait, so when was that?
I don't know.
When do you think?
I guess like when they nerfed a little bit of Hog Freeze.
Yeah, was that like February? I don't know. January?
Did the princess exist?
I think for me, yes. So
I think it did exist. The princess did exist for me.
Okay, so it was after March. I think they launched legendaries with global release.
Yeah, I started a little bit after that because I remember someone dropped an Ice Wizard. I was like, "What is that? I want that!" And then I realized I couldn't get it because it's like super rare. Yeah, that's how they got it. Because I had a wizard, I had a regular wizard. I was like, "This card is the shit." And then this Ice Wizard came out. I'm like, I can't get past it. When do I unlock it? And then I couldn't find it ever. And then someone just told me that it was like super rare and people unlocked it for like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, that's when they just had question marks and like you didn't know what the card was, right?
Yeah. Okay, so last points, by the way, that we haven't touched on is like the challenges that they've put in. They did a Valkyrie challenge, and then on top of that, like right now to this day, they're doing an epic challenge. How do you guys feel about that? How do you guys feel about these challenges?
I thought they were kind of worthless, and honestly, there was no point in even doing it. The Valkyrie offers with the gems were really cheap.
That was so bad.
Or like those are so bad. Like there wasn't even artwork behind it. Like
no, yeah, like I mean, Retro Royale at least had artwork, like, and
like come on, guys, like what are they doing with their lives right there? Like at that moment,
actually, artwork has been on point. Props to Clash Royale. Artwork has been on point recently.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like,
yeah. Listen, the average player, the challenges are better than nothing.
It's great. Yeah, I think it's great.
They're really irrelevant to a top level player.
Yeah,
that's
I want to see a graveyard challenge.
Or like everybody in the FA chat was saying like E-Wiz challenge, like let's go. But still, I'm just glad that they're doing it. I think it's just cool that I didn't even know this was coming. I just logged in one day and just said new challenge. Even if it's a Valkyrie, they'll probably go along this line, or they'll do a Hog Rider challenge or do something along those lines. And it's good for people, obviously, who have a maxed their account, which is the majority of the player base. Like, obviously, they haven't maxed their account. Then they have, like, this epic challenge, which still helps even the top-level players, even if it's a little bit. They'll probably be doing a lot more. They'll probably do a rare challenge, epic. I doubt legendary.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever getting that back like he was.
No, I think they just saw the potential loss that they were gonna get. Kind of shied away from that, but in general, I really like these challenges. I'm glad that they're really good with improving the quality of life inside the game. I think.
Yeah, the draft challenges are good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, those are really fun.
Yeah.
Did you guys have fun playing Retro Royale?
It was too easy. It wasn't like I don't know. I would have liked to see the old card stats.
Yeah, I wish they did that as well.
Card stats. I would have liked it.
5 pump, man.
Pop Pecker Double Prince, let's go.
Legitimately, when I played that Retro Royale, all I saw was like modern day Golem Lightning. It was like they just there was no E-Wiz. They put in a mini P.E.K.K.A. and it was exactly the same deck. I was just
That's
like,
what I did.
yeah, it was like, and it felt exactly the same too. It didn't feel like anything changed. I wasn't even playing anything retro, right? And I was like playing like I was playing like OG Trifecta with like freeze and arrows. But yeah, apparently it was too hard to do that because they would have had to overload, like change all the stats over again.
Yeah.
And especially with their small like
again, like 10 people or something. What is it?
I think it's like 15, 20 or something.
Maybe.
It's like 20, 15.
Yeah, it's like honestly just way too small. If they're ever gonna roll out an update, everyone should know that they've probably been planning or thinking about this update for a long time. They don't do anything like on the fly. Maybe there's Valkyrie challenges on the fly. I don't know, but in the future, like, what would you guys like to see? Is there anything like in particular that you guys want to see?
Sorry, just one thing. Do we have a release date on the next card?
No, I don't think so.
We don't. Do we? That's weird. But
I mean, it should be every like 2 weeks, right? But
I'm pretty sure they said they lengthened it. I thought they were gonna do 3 weeks, but they haven't given a solid date.
It's gonna be 4.
That's what I want to see moving forward. I want to know when we're getting our new cards.
They're not very transparent, man. That's the issue that I've had with Supercell. For example, like my biggest gripe with what has been happening throughout the game in general is just like the bugs. I had 640 viewers today, and I literally lost games because I wasn't able to place down cards in 3 games in a row. 9-0 in GC. I lose 1 game and I win another, and then I lose 2 games in a row just straight up to me not being able to place an Inferno or me not being able to drop a card, and the card would literally stay on the screen. I would be able to drag any other card that I want, and it's kind of ridiculous. Like I really wanted to see a response, or I think Clash Royale, the team in general, they owe the community some bit of transparency. Like I had over 170 retweets on it on Twitter. There were videos on Clash with Ash's channel showcasing
happened to Belican.
It literally happened to Belican in the video.
Belican was complaining about it a lot.
Stuff like that really needs to be addressed, and Clash Royale, even if like they aren't able to fix it immediately, they need to say, "Hey guys, like we noticed that this is an evident issue in the community, and we're seeing that you guys are having issues. Although we can't really fix it immediately because we have a small team and it takes a while for us to like fix it. We are aware of the issue and we are working to remedy it." And they haven't done anything like that. They're not very transparent, and it's quite frankly, like as a player, like having to go through games and not knowing if I can drop a card. Like every single time I'm dropping log now, I'm like, is the log actually going to hit the Goblin Barrel, or am I just going to lose my tower? So like stuff like that is just not really okay in a competitive game. And I would love to see some transparency from them, just recognizing some bugs and realizing like they need to like show top players and just people that are creating content, like at least that it's going to be fixed, because you want to keep everyone else you want to keep everyone going, and you want to keep everyone motivated to keep playing the game. And the way that they're doing is just too passive, and I don't really like it.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier with like the whole bugs thing. When there is a bug, it's pretty significant. It'll take at least like a month or something more to even get addressed. It sucks because it's not in anyone else's control but the creators or the developers.
I think transparency is something that you can always use more of. There's definitely been a lack of it. I think a part of that, even just transparency about not bugs, but something like the matchmaking system in ladder or with challenges or something. I think
they've been pretty. They answered the whole matchmaking and like challenges, like Grand Challenge. They said
Yeah.
that like once you reach around 7, 9 wins is when you start getting paired up with people who can be in any part of that. Like you can play against people who are at 11 wins, or you can play people who are exactly where you are. They've been transparent about them, and ladder two to an extent.
Ladder somewhat, but like there's also 2v2, and just in general, like we shouldn't need to prod them or ask about that. They should be forthcoming with it and give the community an understanding of how things work with it.
Yeah.
Like
So that we know how to go around it. Yeah, I agree.
I like if it can be exploited that easily, then they haven't fully thought out the system. So it should be transparent though, I think, in pretty much every regard.
Okay, so one last thing before I end this, but so CRL is like if people don't know, CRL stands for Clan Royale League, and has been a pretty big tournament. I think team tournament, one of the biggest ones we've had. A lot of clans are participating in it, but right now it's sort of going on leave, and the creator Sui Generis of Hammers said that like anyone who is responsible wants to take over it can take over it. Basically, the organization is here because I believe he's moving to Vainglory, more interested in that scene. So, what do you guys think are?
Did he say that someone else can take over?
I remember seeing the screenshot of just being like, "Yeah, we're going on leave because we don't want to do this anymore. And if you want to take over, just like message me and all that."
I didn't catch that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty relevant to you as like you're a manager and you want to combine all the leagues, and CRL is definitely one of the big ones. But
yeah,
what do you kind of
absolutely?
Yeah, well, what do you take for that? Like,
it makes sense. It makes sense for Sui Generis. He's done a fantastic job with CRL, but he has some big opportunities in front of him with Vainglory, and it makes sense for him to pursue that. I don't know completely what they're going to do moving forwards with it. I haven't seen that specific screenshot. I knew that they were taking a break, and this is sort of they've had more time off than they've had on this league. So personally, while I love CRL, I'm not sure that it's going to be seen through to the end of this season. It was a pretty big endeavor they were going after. They were talking about, I believe, like a 19-week season or something like that, so fairly significant. I would love to see CRL sort of wrap it up in a smaller way with some finals. Clash Royale is wrapping up soon.
Yeah.
RPL is pretty flexible with what they can do. I would love to see all the leagues amalgamated into one cohesive league that with the right backing, the right kind of financial backing, and really a team of people that currently with leagues, it's often one or two guys doing it, and so there's only so much time to go around, and corners have to be cut. With a team of people who know what they're doing from every different league together, you can really get something going where you have the right marketing in place, you have the right kind of website in place, you have great broadcast value. So that's really what I'd like to see moving forwards, and what I anticipate the community will be seeing fairly soon.
I think that's like perfect, so long as you can still leave room for like budding organizations or people who want to like kind of join it. If you have this one huge league that dominates everything, like let's say LCS for example in League of Legends, they own the circuit. There's no like small homegrown kind of stuff, so you only participate in that one league. If you have that, then you kind of bump out all the players who are either not participating in it or want to like get known by the other leagues. So as long as like that exists, like you have this huge like you have this huge league that is great for the whole tournament realm. As long as you leave the room for other people who want to grow or other orgs that want to grow, I think that's perfect. As long as you have other options, you can't like strangle out other people who want to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think accessibility is important. That's definitely, as much as we want to support the players that we know are really engaged in the teams and the leagues, accessibility is important. And I think it's something important to Supercell from what we've heard. And so it's definitely something we want to allow for with whatever we pursue.
To touch on that, I think a lot of the leagues in general have been running on a lot of like volunteers, and volunteers aren't necessarily like the most reliable form of like worker or just anyone that like it doesn't. They're not as motivated to run everything as smoothly as possible.
No.
So, like for CRL or other leagues, sometimes one of the admins or some of the people in the clans will get the rules mixed up, and it'll make things more confusing. CRL does generally a really good job, but in some instances, like, or even other leagues, like when they pool a whole bunch of more motivated people together, like their best people or the best workers, like I think that leagues will just be run a lot more efficiently. They'll get players out faster. They'll get matches done quicker. I think it'll just be much more beneficial to have like the strongest assets of every single organization or every single like league brought together to create a objectively like one of the best leagues.
Yeah, and if you pay them, obviously, then you skip over the whole volunteer thing and just people messing up. Yeah. If they have incentive and you're paying these people to organize, they're going to do it right, or they're going to get fired.
Exactly.
That would be great. Especially like NGE went so well, like we said, just because you had people who were admins who were actually like paid by the company to do this, and no one, I think no one had a complaint.
Yeah.
So
they also use the Smash GG platform really well.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Like the platforms are definitely good. And then if you've ever been a part of like a grassroots tournament, you'll just know that when you're in the clan chat, it's just like going crazy. Yeah, games are getting lost in the replays. People are disputing. People are like cursing in chat, flaming each other, toxic. Like everything is just blown out of proportion, and you don't want that, especially if you're trying to be taken seriously.
And that is something the community is actually getting better at, where a lot of the players now, they understand the expectations when they're playing in a tournament. They understand they're not supposed to be talking there. It absolutely happens, but it's gone a lot better.
Yeah, definitely.
Like with CRCS, we used a fairly unique format where teams would play against 7 other teams in a day, and they would have, each player would have 5 games going on. Each team would have 5 players, and they would have all 5 of their games going on at the same time. So you might have, what would it be, 5 across 4 matches, like 20 games. You would have 20 games happening concurrently in a clan, and it was a mess to start with. But they learned the process. They learned what the expectations were, and by the end of it, things were running super smoothly with no issues.
I remember CRCS being run actually really well. Everybody knew what to do. There wasn't any like real complaints. And yeah, like in the beginning it was definitely messy because like people were like requesting, and they had to keep requesting like over and over again because it would get shot down, and I don't know, but eventually, yeah, like teams would just go in and they know what to do, and that's. Oh, by the way, okay, I know I keep saying last point, but this is like the conversation keeps moving. So if we do have this like huge tournament, or we have a competitive scene, a lot of these tournaments, a lot of the ones that we have a whole bunch of different rules in terms of some deal with bans, some have no bans like Clash Wars, some have like bans after a few games, some like in CRNAO they applied like SMC rules. Like all of these are different. How do you want that to keep going? Do you want there to be like one global recognized, like, here's a tournament format, this is what you should be practicing?
I think innovation in terms of rules and formats is fantastic. If you look at RPL compared to CRL and Clash Wars and CRCS, they all had sort of their own defining feature, their own differentiator. I think that's really good for the scene. And then also like, just every single league has had their own key characteristic. That said, coming together for a big league, with all the other ones amalgamated, you are going to have sort of one universal rule set that's applied to that league. I would love to still have other grassroots leagues trying out their own things. So, like I said, I want it to be accessible. I don't want to be stifling out any other competition. But definitely, it will be a hard conversation to figure out what rule set we would want to implement with the large league. But it's something where I think we're already on track with that. We actually, even though we weren't working together, we have a Discord with all of the league organizers and everything, where we discuss issues that we think are universal and apply to everyone. And so there are a lot of things that we've come to a consensus on. And the thing you actually don't see is right now, the people who run RPL are also working and helping with Clash Wars, and people who run Clash Wars are helping with CRCS. And there's a lot of sort of...
It's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover. So rather than 3 different teams all working on 3 different things, but like doing each of them, it's bringing everyone together. I think we'll work well for it, and I think we'll be able to figure out something universal that works.
Okay. So I think that'll be the end of the episode. Thank you guys for coming on. I know that we don't have Colton here, but I'm just going to give him a shout out really fast. So Colton was here, but he had to leave. Make sure to check him out at his Twitter, Colton Wall, right beneath his webcam. I'll also be linking his YouTube. He's a really big YouTuber. Also is a part of my team, Mastery.gg, as a professional player. So check him out. If you have any shout outs or anything that you want me to do, NiteLight, go ahead.
My Twitter is at NiteLightCR. Night is NITE. You can follow me there if you just want to stay updated. Nova Esports tweets about anything going on with Nova. Obviously, that's just at Nova Esports. And other than that, just thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I had a good time.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Jake?
Yeah, so I'd appreciate if everyone stayed connected on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. All of them are SirTagCR. And I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I hope to see you guys then.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the 3rd episode of Arena Talk. I know we went a little bit longer. It's almost 3 hours, actually.
Just a bit.
just a little bit, but we had a lot to catch up on, especially because I usually mean for this program to go on every bi-monthly, I believe, but we skipped some weeks because I felt like a little bit didn't happen. So next week we'll be having 2 new guests, or just 1 new guest. It depends. If you guys want to see what else you guys want to talk about, make sure to leave it in the comments below. And yeah, comment, like, subscribe, guys. Thank you guys for watching.